on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and the Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Our next item of business is 30 seconds of silent reflection. I'd ask those that are able to remove your hats and please stand for the singing of the Canadian National Anthem. The Council of the City of Peterborough recognizes the principles contained in our Constitution and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. The next item of business is approval of minutes of December 8th, 2025 and January 12th, 2026. Councillor Beamer, comments or questions? Councillor Purnell, seconder, comments or questions? We'll go to a vote. And that is carried. Councillors Vasiliadis and Councillor Duday are both online, Mr. Clerk. Is that correct?
Thanks, Your Worship. We have Councillor Vasiliadis online at the moment, and we're just waiting for Councillor Duday. Thank you.
Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest at this particular time? Declarations, Councillor Burke, please.
Mayor Leo, thank you. I think I have an interest on 7B, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment for 223 Crescent Street. I have a business relationship with RP, with the applicant. I have a business relationship with the applicant. Thank you.
We have that flagged, Councillor Burke, 10I. Any other declarations at this time? Declarations? I'm not seeing any more declarations. Our next item of business is registered delegations. Our first delegation this evening was going to be Martha Sullivan on 362 Queen Street, Peterborough, Ontario. Report IPGPL 25-009. Her concerns have been addressed, so she won't be delegating this evening. Our next series of delegations deals with the procedure bylaw report, LSCLK 26-007. And our first presenter would ask Diane Terry and Hale to come forward. Diane, please. If we could have your name and address for the public record. You know the route, 5 minutes to make a delegation. After
Okay.
the end of 4, we'll let you know you have 1 minute left. And as I said, if we could have your name and address for the public record.
Sure. I should
Welcome.
do about 4 minutes and 15 seconds. I timed it. So,
Welcome.
good evening, Mayor Leal and members of council. My name is Diane Terrian Hale. I live at 626 Romaine Street in Peterborough. I am here to speak to the draft changes to the procedure bylaw. I fully understand the mandate of council to review the bylaw each term and update as needed. Some of the proposed changes are valid and necessary, although others seem to be at odds with a municipality that, despite the efforts of some councillors and staff, continues to face criticism about being somewhat archaic, and a council that has oft been accused of lacking in transparency and forward-thinking decision-making. First, I do support the proposed change to orally record closed session meetings. I believe that having oral recordings of in-camera meetings is important, particularly with reference to potential investigations regarding conduct in those meetings. I understand there are concerns from some councillors about this change. However, I fully trust the city clerk and their office to maintain those records securely and in confidence. Second, I do not support the change regarding the banning of electronic devices, including cell phones, in council chambers. In closed session, absolutely. But in open session, such a ban is an outright overreach of authority and something that literally no other municipality in the province has enacted. Passing the bylaw with this ban will only serve to further the city and this council's reputation as being stuck in the 20th century, unable and/or unwilling to adapt to the current technological reality of how the world works in 2026. I take particular umbrage with some members of council who spoke in support of this change by making unfounded accusations towards other members and contravening their own stated desire to elect respect. Such cognitive dissonance continues to be disappointing, but not surprising. Moreover, implementing such a ban 3 months before the May 1st nomination period opens for the October municipal election seems, as the kids would say, highly sus. While the explicit purpose of this ban might not be to further alienate young people from the political process, I can tell you that that will be one of the outcomes. If you personally don't want to use or learn to use a cell phone, that's fine, but do not police the rest of council and the incoming council with such unnecessary and regressive measures. Lastly, with regards to limiting public delegations, I truly believe that further work should be done to ensure fairness and equitable access of residents to be able to speak before council. Limiting delegations to a maximum of 10, regardless of the number of agenda items, is deeply problematic. There are often cycles of council where there are multiple highly contentious issues on the agenda, and restricting the public's ability to delegate on those issues is not helpful in building trust and confidence between the public and our elected officials, which at all levels of government seems to be at an all-time low. Allowing only 10 delegations means that the ability of people to register depends entirely on their quick access to reliable technology and internet, their ability to navigate the website, or their ability to physically attend the clerk's office to fill out the delegation forms. I would argue that this is unfair and borders on discriminatory to people without reliable technology and to folks who rely on transit or other forms of transportation to physically get to City Hall to register in time to be one of the first and only 10. I would suggest that, perhaps as a compromise, the number of delegations be changed back to per item, and you could reduce it from 10 to between 3 and 5, which is something that other municipalities have done and is quite in line with how other municipalities in Eastern Ontario have handled this issue. In conclusion, while it is council's prerogative to review the procedure bylaw each term, there is nothing binding saying that multiple changes must be made. That is at your discretion, and I implore you to use that discretion to consider what is best for the residents of Peterborough and our democratic process at large. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Diane. There may be some questions. Councillor Real and Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Real, please.
Through the chair to Ms. Hale. Diane, thank you very much for being here. I know when you were the mayor of the city of Peterborough, you brought some changes to the procedural bylaw, and one of them was the amount of delegates that we could have to 10. Could you give me a little bit of your thought process? You spoke about here about the changes that are made to 10 overall delegates for
Mhm.
the complete meeting. Can you give me your thought process when you looked at that procedural bylaw and came to the number of 10?
Sure. Through the chair, Mr. Mayor. When I was the chair of the Eastern Ontario Mayor's Caucus, there was a time where we had unlimited delegation. Some of you will remember those days, and there were changes brought forward to put some limitations around it because there were, of course, nights where the vast majority of the time was taken up with delegations that can get repetitive. Fair enough. And other municipalities in Eastern Ontario thought that the city of Peterborough having no limits was just like wild and unheard of. So I know that other municipalities, Kingston, Belleville, Cornwall, have some limits. Although going from what we have now, 10 per item, to 10 overall, regardless of what the agenda looks like, to me is just going to be problematic down the road. Because as you know, some agendas are quite light. Some cycles, the agenda is super heavy and you have a ton of different issues that people want to speak to. And then, like I said, for people to be able to be one of the first 10 to register, they need to be on the website or at the clerk's office or on the phone, like immediately, to try to be one of those 10. Like, to me, that's it does border on discriminatory for folks who don't have the access to be able to do that, or who perhaps aren't inclined to speak right away, like some of us who don't mind coming here and stirring the pot a little bit, I guess. So I think that there is a way to do it. I think going by agenda is problematic. I think having limits per item makes more sense, and certainly there could be discussion about bringing that down from 10. There's few items I think that you generally would have 10 or more. It does happen, but there are, of course, other ways for folks to express concerns to council. So I hope that sort of answers a little bit of your question.
Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, your worship. Through you, Diana. It's good to see you. Can recall 4 years ago, you and I working on the procedural bylaw, trying to bring some changes in, and you're exactly right. I can recall one meeting when there were probably 40 or 50 delegates talking about BXWT, and we didn't finish the delegation until almost 11:30 at night.
Mhm.
The council business concluded at 3 a.m. There were a number of us, I think including yourself at the time, said that, council couldn't make great decisions after midnight. And so I think that was part and parcel for one of the things that we worked on to try and get that limit down to 10. The clerk can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I wanted to ask your opinion, Diane. If the procedural bylaw restricts the number of delegates speaking to 10, I believe a councillor could move a motion to suspend the order or the rules of order, which would allow unlimited numbers of delegates to come on a particular issue. You've referenced that in your comments. So let's say it's the knocking down the buildings at General Electric, let's say.
Sure.
I can see that being in a situation where we might want to have, or there may be more than 10 people who want to come. I suspect one of the councillors could make a motion to suspend the order so we can have more people delegate. Is that a compromise in your opinion as well?
I think that well, a good suggestion. I don't know how that would play out because, again, that motion would have to be made at the general committee meeting, I believe, unless you're making the motion at council when people have already been told they can't delegate.
Council, I think, because that's when they.
So if there already is a cap on 10 delegates for the whole meeting, to then suspend it, well, people have already been told, because I know that I've tried to register as a delegate before when there was already 10 people on an item, and it was like there's already 10 people on this item. So I don't think that would solve the issue. Because again, people would have already thought, well, I'm not allowed to delegate, so why, they might not take the pains to come be here. Yeah.
Fair enough. And I guess the other comment I'd like to make, Mr. Chair, is that there are no limits on statutory meetings like planning.
Sure.
Or on budget. So, if we had 35 or 40 people that want to come and talk about the budget, they are not limited there, or on a planning issue. So It's just these other items. So I just wanted to kind of have that put out there. And Diana, it's great to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. You too. Yeah, and I know those legislated, by the province, obviously there, you can't cap those delegates. But I think again, for some of those other issues that fall just under the municipal mandate, it still is important to, make constituents feel like they're able to come and express concerns. They can do it through email, but some people like to come up and actually speak face to face. So,
Councillor Chica, please.
Thank you very much, through your worship. To Diane Tyrion, thank you for thank you for being here. And it's interesting to hear your remarks regarding different scenarios that one could come up with regarding number of speakers, length of speaking, all of that. From your experience as a councillor and as a mayor, do you feel that it's a short window of time to make decisions such as what has come forth in this particular procedural proposal? And secondly, in your experience, what is the best case scenario for implementing these ideas and proposals? Should there be consultation with other councillors or the public? What would, in your experience, have been the best case scenario to come up with procedural bylaw changes? Thank you very much.
Diane, please.
okay, thank you very much through the chair. There's a few in there, so I'll try to answer them. But again, I know that there is sort of like a procedural bylaw subcommittee that meets. I think that having consultation beyond that group would have been helpful. Whether or not that occurred, I'm not privy to that. I think again that the way that the council cycles are working, where it's committee and then council immediately the next week without that week in between, it has sort of changed the vibe a little bit. For a long time, there was sort of that. We used to have planning committee of the whole, and then council. There's been changes over the years, and as things evolve. So I think that sort of short window between general committee and council is something that is a bit tricky for people to navigate, and certainly for all of you to read like the vast amounts of materials that come before you each cycle. Never mind having to respond to all the constituent requests and all the other things that go on behind the scenes that folks might not realize is part of being an elected official. There's so much more than just this meeting that happens on Monday nights. So, I think the comparison and looking at what other municipal councils have done, that's good, but that, you don't necessarily need to, take that as a blueprint. You can tailor it to our very unique community and the needs that we have here. I forget if there was probably another question in there, but.
Thank you. No, that answers.
Okay, thanks.
Anything further, Councillor Chica? Councillor Burke, please.
Mayor Leo, thank you through you to Ms. Terry Hale. Diane, thank you for coming. I sort of agree with, I think a lot of focus has been put on the personal device issue from this, but I believe that the more concerning change being implemented is the limitation of public input. And I agree with your suggestions, and also in my own research agree with what you said about how other municipalities are addressing what this is trying to address. But my question is back to the personal electronic communication devices. I had a sort of idea on the fly last week as a compromise where it would enable staff to look at how communication besides speaking as I am could be problematic. Like it would take that into heart and also address our autonomy to be able to follow the rules. So I just suggested to change the wording from not be in possession of to not use your personal device for these reasons. Do you think that is a more reasonable approach if the outcome that staff wants is for us not to do city business or communicate around this table besides in this way?
Diane, please.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think, yeah, it's an interesting issue, the use of personal cell phones. I can understand folks feeling like there's, business being done. The flip side is that a lot of folks in the general public feel like the business is being done sort of behind closed doors, and which isn't out in the open anyways. And so there has to be sort of a balance between what the procedure bylaw says and, what is happening around the horseshoe. And you can have a cell phone. I'm not sure how that, is going to be policed, like, are you going to, because it sounds very punitive. Like I've heard, folks in elementary schools saying like, or high school saying we don't even have these kinds of rules for our students. So, are you all going to get sent to the hallway if you have your cell phone? Like what, that's going to be tricky to navigate. And I just don't see how that's the best use of council time. I don't think that, as you said, I think a couple folks made the point last week that it's trying to solve a problem that hasn't really been pointed to actually being a problem. If that were the case, then sure. But I think it's an overreach. And again, my concern too is that the impact that it will have on folks who hear about it and are like considering wanting to get involved in municipal politics, particularly younger folks, to be told that they do all their emails and business on cell phones. And so certainly you don't want folks being distracted, while they're in council chambers. But having been around that table for 8 years, I know folks use their cell phones around that table, whether you voted for it or not. Some of you still do use those cell phones, and that's okay. As long as we're paying attention and making the best decisions for the community.
Thank you. And one final question, Mr. Chair. If you read as I'm reading the bylaw, the paragraph about our personal electronic communication device is actually pursuant to the bullet point above it, which really is in reference to how at this table we communicate and how that has to be done through the chair.
Mm-hmm.
So as someone who's had experience at this horseshoe, is it absurd to you, like it is to me, that these devices are electronic devices that have all of the same ways in which we can communicate to each other and the public embedded in them? They have access to the internet. They have access to any app that I have on my phone. This computer is only personally accessible by me via a password. Is it not kind of illogical to say that I can't have a phone in my pocket, but I'm allowed to maybe or maybe not communicate through this device that we rely on?
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as things are done through the chair and, folks are, abiding by all the other guidelines that this council abides by, I feel like it's sort of an unnecessary overreach. And again, something that just seems to be, again, taking up time and energy when there's so many other more pressing issues in the community.
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's nice to see you.
Thanks.
Councillor Chica, please.
Thank you. Through you. Thank you. Something else just came to mind, a question. So thank you, Your Worship. I had a labor lawyer this week speak to me about the scope of a procedure bylaw, that a procedure bylaw really is about the rules of debate. And that the purview of that around the cell phone possession would have more, or it seems implicit from the debate last week, to do with code of conduct. And so, why is this coming up in a procedure bylaw when that has to do with the rules of debate? Your thoughts or reflections on that? Do you have any? Thank you.
Through the chair, I'm not a labor lawyer, so but I do think that indeed, if somebody was using their personal cell phone for what turned out to be, in inappropriate ways or ways that were not conducive to the business of council, certainly that would be something that, in my mind, would make more sense to be covered under the code of code of conduct, rather than the procedure bylaw, because in my experience, the procedure bylaw is to govern sort of like how these meetings are run, and so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much, Diane.
Thank you very much.
Our next delegate is Danielle Turpin. Ms. Turpin, please. If we could have your name and address for the public record and 5 minutes to make a presentation. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. I'm Danielle Turpin, 1288 Bridal Drive.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, I'm here tonight because I don't think this council is being honest with the public, or maybe even with itself, about what this vote is really about and who is going to be most affected by it. This isn't just about how meetings run, it's about how democracy is exercised in this city, who gets heard, and whether public participation is something this council truly values and protects. I'm a founder of a worker-owned cooperative. I spend my life inside democratic decision-making. And one thing I have learned over and over again is that when governance gets quieter or gets smoother, it's rarely because things are working better. Usually it's because people have stopped believing it's worth speaking up. So a board with no friction is an unhealthy board. Friction doesn't mean chaos. It means people are engaged. It means decisions are being tested instead of rushed. It means power isn't just flowing from one direction without challenge. And when I read this report, what stood out to me wasn't clarity, transparency, or efficiency. It was how many of these changes are designed to reduce that friction. Limits on delegations, limits on councillors' questions, tighten response times, shorter debate, more decisions that are bundled together. So we take all this together and all of that points in one direction. Less space for people, less time to think, and less room for challenge. And this doesn't just affect the public. This affects every single one of you and your ability to do your job properly and meaningfully as we elected you to do. If councillors are being rushed, if questions are capped, if answers are forced into these short time frames, then decisions are being made without fully understanding their real impact. Complex issues don't resolve themselves with 2 questions and 90-second answers. Real impacts surface through conversation and disagreement and with time. At the last meeting about this, several councillors actually tried to engage in this good faith discussion. They suggested reasonable solutions and amendments to the cell phone ban, for example, changing the word to focus on use rather than possession. They asked what problems were actually being solved with all of these changes. Those are basic governance questions, yet no one could really answer them clearly. And this should concern all of us because it shows that decisions here are moving forward without meaningful collaboration, without reason, and without explanation, and without the willingness to just slow down and listen. And it shows exactly why debate matters, because the person with the last word isn't always right. We're seeing our democratic rights being played with here under the guise of process, through rules, through changings, or through decisions framed as reasonable. And while power is becoming more centralized and democratic spaces are getting smaller and less accessible. That erosion doesn't start in a vacuum. It starts with people like you, in rooms exactly like this, with decisions exactly like this. And it starts with leaders who believe that efficiency is more important than democracy. If these procedural changes were truly small and technical, as this report was implying, they wouldn't be worth talking about publicly. Yet Councillor Parnell went on CBC's Ontario Morning to talk about them. She was able to have her voice heard and her position heard, unchecked and unchallenged. Yet Councillor Parnell will likely vote in favor of minimizing all of our voices tonight. So it's hard to accept the idea that this is just procedural, while at the same time debate with the people who actually live with the consequences of these votes are going to be restricted. As elected officials, you don't get to make decisions that affect people's housing, services, neighborhoods, and daily lives, and then treat public input as something just to manage. We aren't an inconvenience. We are actually the reason this room exists. Tonight's vote isn't about procedure. It's a values test for each and every one of you. If residents start to feel that meaningful input is always rushed, capped, or quietly sidelined, we don't just get frustrated, we're going to push back. And once people stop believing this room in here belongs to them, trust slowly doesn't erode, it breaks completely. So yes, how you vote tonight will tell us exactly how you value democracy and how you value us as the real stakeholders in all of these decisions. And to those of you who are running again, please know this. If people feel shut out of democracy inside these chambers, they're going to find another way in. And that way is going to be at the ballot box in October. So please vote tonight as if your political career depends on it, because it does. Thank you.
Ms. Turbin, thank you very much for your presentation. There could be some questions. Questions? Councillor Real, please.
Through the chair to Ms. Turpin. Danielle, thank you very much for being here. And I believe you probably answered my question at the end. If this procedural bylaw change goes through, and your ability to come and present at council, what is your last resort of being heard in the community?
It's going to be media. It's going to be social media. It's going to be media. It'll be, depending on what the topic is, that our voice is going to be shut out from. It'll be rallies on front in, in City Hall. There's other recourses. I just don't understand why the people who are really being affected by this, because it's all of us here, do not have a right to be able to be heard on every single agenda item that is going to be discussed. These aren't your items. These aren't your decisions solely. They have to be made in partnership with the stakeholders here, and that's us, right? So we're in a position right now where I'm feeling the political climate everywhere is a little bit crazy, and I think we all can, appreciate that. People are feeling that our voices, everywhere we look, we're being shut out from decisions that are affecting our lives. This is such a simple decision for you guys, really, and especially because it's only a few months before this next election. I don't understand why any of you would risk this, to be honest. There's no real reason for it. No one could give a proper explanation on why any of these decisions actually had to be made right now, and there's nothing mandating you to make any of these decisions. So I implore you all to really just take a step back, really think about this, and think about the message that each and every one of you is sending about what you value, because that's what we're going to take away tonight.
Councillor
Thank
Hale, have
Thank you.
another question? Okay. Any other? Councillor Burke, please.
Thank you, Mayor Leal. Ms. Turpin, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
My personal belief in terms of what makes a good leader is someone that understands and listens to people that have opposing views. And so that's why it was important for me last week to try to, even though personally I felt differently, to try to find some sort of middle ground between what was being proposed versus how I feel. And I do understand where some of these changes are coming from. So my question to you through the chair is around Miss Terry-Ann Hale's suggestion, which I think is a good example of that compromise. And Diane suggested that maybe we could limit, because she was bang on. Some nights our agendas are very light, and other nights we have heavy agendas with a multitude of different issues that are important to different groups of people. So Diane's suggestion was a great one. I hope we talk more about it, but it was to limit the amount of delegates per agenda item to between, I think she said between 3 and 5. Would that be a sort of compromise that you could handle?
Mr.
Yeah.
Turpin, please.
Yeah, thank you. Through you. I think that's a really important compromise. And I think that word is really important. Compromise. It has to be about different perspectives and coming together and finding a solution that works for everyone. I firmly believe that. And most times there are solutions that work for everyone if time is put into this. I know for a fact that if this law was, or this bylaw was passed and voted for prior to this meeting, there's 4 of us right now who are speaking on this very important agenda item. So you guys look around and tell me who you don't want to speak or who shouldn't have a right to speak, because that's exactly what's going to happen every single time. So yeah, we have to have a limit. And if we go over and we have a really long agenda item, I think Councillor Baldwin, you had mentioned that some have gone into like 1 a.m. or whatever. You guys know what your agendas are going to look like. Is there any reason why you can't spread that out over 2 days? Or, or shorten the agenda down and break it down? That's on you guys. That's not on the public's responsibility to manage that, right? So I do think it's important that we look at that compromise. I would fully support that at 5 people per agenda item.
Mr. Chair, Danielle, thank you so much. It is incorrect, though. We absolutely do not know what our agendas are going to look like. We receive our agendas a day before the public does, and we are just we are as in the dark as the public is in terms of what is going to be on that agenda.
Who creates the agenda?
Staff.
Okay, so they would be able to maybe manage that a bit better then. Yeah.
Through the chair, possibly.
Yeah, that'd be my suggestion.
Anything further, Councillor Burke?
Thank you, Mr.
Councillor
Chair.
LaChica, please.
Thank you very much. Through you, your worship, to Ms. Turpin, thank you for coming and for your articulate presentation. There's a great deal of thought and analysis you provided on each of the points you raised, and it's much appreciated. Thank you for reminding us who this House belongs to, and who it is that have elected us, and the importance of voice. The issue of length seems to be the impetus behind reducing the number of speakers in delegations. And given that, and you've already mentioned and endorsed the idea that Councillor Burke and Ms. Tyrion Hale had mentioned earlier, is there anything else that you can think of, you know, when we're reaching 1 o'clock in the morning on a long agenda with many delegations? What do you think, as a thoughtful politico that you are, might be a helpful approach or a different approach to address that particular issue, so that we're not fatigued, so that length isn't the big issue? Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Ms. Turpin, please.
Thank you, through you. I would say, I guess I would be speaking to the city staff who are making these agendas and seeing if they can maybe make them a little bit more concise, separate them into different days if possible, if there's going to be one that's going to be more fulsome. I also believe that staff and council are very aware of some of these contentious items where you may get some, you know, a lot of delegates coming to. And so maybe if there's a little bit of forethought into that and planning ahead of time, then folks might not be here until 1 in the morning. But I'm going to just add one more thing to that, because democracy is not supposed to be efficient. Democracy isn't supposed to be clean and neat. It's supposed to be messy, and it's supposed to be about listening, and it's supposed to be about multiple personalities, most importantly, through the people who are the stakeholders of every single decision you make. So, yeah, there might be times when you're going to have to listen to us, and that's what you're elected for. So I understand that you guys have a job and you have lives and you have all of that. And I'm pretty sure 1 a.m. meetings don't go and don't happen all the time. But I need to know that our city council, who's making really important decisions about our daily lives, are doing that with the best intentions, not because they want to get in and out very quickly, right? And that's what I'm seeing here with this. So I'm hoping that tonight you guys will vote better. And realize that the people who really, really matter in these decisions are the ones that the decisions affect, and that's us here. Thank you.
Councillor Baldwin, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Danielle, it's good to see you again.
You too.
One of the things that's been done at council over the last 12 years, when I've had the privilege of sitting here, is that one person or a couple of people will take a variety of different inputs from a community, and they'll be the speaker, and they'll come. I can recall, let's just use one person, Ian Attridge, for example. He would come and he would express or give a presentation for council's consideration on behalf of a certain organization. Would you concur with that as an option of presenting information to council?
For sure, if it's for a group of people or a certain organization. But again, I'm going to put the onus back on council and city staff, because we're not here to accommodate you, to make your job easier. You guys are here to be listening to us and to really get that input from us. So absolutely, I would try to prioritize and maybe encourage public to, if you're a part of an organization or a group of people, to have that one person to speak. That makes perfect sense. But that's not something that we should be forced to organize, you know, for ourselves. But I would definitely encourage it.
Second, Mr. Chair. Danielle, I know each of the councillors works a little bit differently. Certainly, Councillor Riel and I are quite often dealing with individuals one-on-one or one-on-three or one-on-two at a coffee shop. We do some of our best work, I would say, Keith, on the grassroots level. I can count on my hand this year the number of people I've conversed with who've actually come to council and made a delegation. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong. That's just the reality of it. So I'm assuming you do reach out to councillors in a different way as opposed to coming to council, to council chambers.
Yeah, I am very engaged with council. I would like to believe that some would be engaged with me. Sadly, I don't get the responses via email as I should through my own counselors. So yes, but I do. And I hear what you're saying. So maybe there could be a way to have some sort of campaign to really talk and highlight different ways to communicate with your counselors and encourage that, because one-to-one is definitely the best way, I think, right? And then they don't have to come and speak because you guys are already answering that. Like the one person who had today, right? Her issue was already solved. That's perfect. Yeah, and unless we can rely on getting that really decent response back from the city councilors, this might be sometimes people's last resort. We also don't know how every councillor communicates with others, right? So, and even though I speak to my councillors regularly and many others, I don't know if they're communicating my views to everyone else. And their vote also is important, and their vote affects me as well. So I think that there needs to be multiple avenues for people to express their concerns.
Lastly, Your Worship, one of the reasons I do communicate with my constituents and members across the city, we are city councillors, just not ward councillors. Quite often when you send back an email response, you lose proprietary over that. You don't know where it goes, to whom it goes. So quite often, I know Keith and I work this a lot. We'll send back a response. Thank you very much for your correspondence.
Yeah.
Would be happy to converse and meet and talk about this, because I don't know how you infer a response from me, for example. And if I'm talking to someone just like you and I are now across the desk, I think you've got a much better opportunity to make a conversation that's authentic, and it's between 2 or 3 people. It doesn't go wildfire across the city. I have no idea where it goes and what's said and what's inferred. So my method of dealing with people is to converse absolutely by email, but let's have a conversation. Let's sit down and have a conversation one-on-one or a small group, i.e. coffee with the counselor. Have 2 or 3 of you come and sit down with the counselor and have a good dialogue and discussion. Get a lot of good things done that way.
Sure. Can I answer or not? I know it wasn't really a question for you.
Yep,
Thank
go
you.
ahead.
Yeah, and I guess maybe my response to that, and I think what I'm hearing here is excellent. That's exactly what I think we would want, right? If you were my counselor and I reached out to you and you did exactly what you said, and then you asked, hey, would you like to meet? And I would if I could. What do you do with that information? Do you bring it back to council? Do you speak to my issue at council so everyone else gets to hear my concerns? Because if you don't, then the onus again is on the constituents to reach out to every single one of you guys, sit down and have a coffee, because you don't want to respond by email. And I understand why. It doesn't work as well. You want to have these personal conversations. So in order to make sure that my voice is being heard by every single council person here, the expectation would be that I set up meetings with every single person, because I'm not too sure what you do with that at that time. So I don't know, maybe you can clarify. Do you say I had a meeting with somebody and these were some of the concerns and I want all of these council members to know that? Because I don't hear that often here, but
Danielle, that would be a conversation between you and I. Could I share some of our conversations with my counselor colleagues? I wouldn't just automatically do that without getting your permission.
okay.
Because there may be some things that you and I are discussing on a personal level that you don't want to go anywhere any further. But certainly, if you're saying, Gary, would you please share these conversations with your counselor colleague or the mayor or anybody else, I would have no problem doing that.
So I do have one response through you, Mayor. So I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm not opposed to any type of engagement with constituents. That's what has to happen. But I'm also hearing that to make things easier for councillors, that the onus is on the constituents to organize themselves to be able to reach out maybe several times, right, through email or through a coffee or whatever. So that brings back accessibility issues, childcare issues. It brings up when we can work, when we can't work. They're important and they are absolutely part of that process. but they can't be the only or the most the prioritized one, right? So I think it's important that we really, really focus on different avenues, accessible avenues for everybody. And most importantly, and lastly, we cannot limit from 10 to 1 per item, the amount of people who have to speak. I can promise you we're going to have problems. Not us, but it's going to be a problem. People are not going to be happy with
We're not
that.
gonna have a problem, Daniel.
We've had problems, I know. No worries. Thanks. Yeah. He
Any
was my
further-
son's principal, so yeah.
Any further questions for Mr. Herman? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Haleman, please. Mr. Haleman, if we could have your name and address for the public record, and you have 5 minutes to make a presentation.
Sure thing. Thank you. So my name is Rob Hellman. My address is 500 Murray Street in Peterborough.
Please proceed, sir.
Great. Thank you. So I'm here to express my concerns about the bylaw, most importantly about the changes to the delegations into the time of debate for councillors. But first, I want to make a very brief comment about the ban on personal electronic devices. It is nonsensical on its face for precisely the reason that Councillor Burke mentioned. You have computers on your desks. There may be our concerns about communication and information outside of the public record and the rules of debate, but banning personal devices does not resolve it. In this term, we've seen councillors make intimations about others that there have been information or even specific texts of motions and things brought forward that were conducted by unseen actors. To my knowledge, this has always been baseless. There is evidently distrust and disrespect amongst this council, but that does not need to be enshrined in a bylaw. The limits on delegations are inappropriate and non-democratic. In the time that I've been involved in political life in Peterborough, I've seen the scope of public delegations been progressively weakened over 20 years. The reduction in speaking time, the institution of a cap on the number of delegates, the restriction that you can only speak to one agenda item, the removal of unregistered delegations. We can debate the wisdom of those changes, but the current change, I think, goes much too far. The staff report names a number of municipalities that were tapped for best practices. As my friend David King noted in an article he wrote for Arthur, none of those municipalities have a restriction on delegations as restrictive as the one proposed today. Moreover, many provide greater opportunities for participation by delegates, allowing more time, the opportunity to speak to more than one item, or the opportunity for delegates themselves to ask questions. I have similar concerns about the reduction in speaking time for councillors in meetings. This would reduce the time to speak to a total of 10 minutes per councillor per item in general committee and just 6 minutes in council. To be honest, I'm bewildered as to what makes that necessary. I can see the reasoning in a municipality with a large council, such as Toronto, with 26 members of council and a restriction of 5 minutes per councillor per agenda item, or in Ottawa with 25, but I don't see the reason in a council of 11. Both of these changes directly serve to undermine the purpose that council is here to serve. I've heard many people say, publicly and privately, throughout this term of council, that it seems like decisions are made behind closed doors, that by the time reports come to council and to these meetings, votes are already decided, and that delegations and debate of council itself is little more than pageantry. Perhaps I'm a fool, but I'm not convinced of that. But the changes of this bylaw do point to a future where that certainly could be the case, if it is not already. I can't make the case plainly enough that public comment and debate by elected officials are not just an important part of democracy, they are democracy itself. And yet General Committee has already endorsed a plan to restrict them in the name of efficiency. As we've heard from other delegates this evening, there is a tension between efficiency and the work of governance. Ensuring that voices are heard and that hard decisions are given consideration and debate on the record and in public is time-consuming. It can be painstaking, it can be profoundly unexciting. It is also the work that you are elected to do. If efficiency means doing that work less, then we should welcome and celebrate our inefficiency together. Once again, there is evidently distrust and disrespect amongst this council, but that distrust does not need to be enshrined in a bylaw. I won't labor the point by talking about the bigger issues here, about the importance of fighting for democracy right here in a world where fascism is climbing back faster and faster every day. But if hearing from the public and from each other is a burden too onerous for any of you to bear, there is a simple solution, and one that does not require putting a bylaw into office. There's an election this year, and you are welcome to end your public service then. If that is too long to wait, there is a door right there, and you are welcome to walk through it and not return. And I'm not joking. You do not have to do this work. So let me offer a few solutions to wrap up. First and foremost, tonight, either remove these couple of items from the procedure bylaw before adopting it, or perhaps, based on what we've heard this evening, defer it until such time that a version that respects the principles of democracy can be prepared. A recent editorial in the Examiner made some very valuable suggestions and pointed that these issues can be addressed in the consideration of how council agendas are prepared. It is very seldom a surprise by the time we get to a meeting what item will spur a great number of delegations or what item will spur a great deal of debate. This should be taken into account when drafting agendas to avoid the situation we've seen too many times when meetings are 6, 8, 10 hours long, and then in the next cycle they're 45 minutes long. We could also consider strengthening rules and processes around multiple delegations from individuals representing the same group. I think we've all been at meetings where a group which has a great deal of passion and a lot to say about an issue might register 5 or 6 delegates. There could be consideration or some processes put in place to prioritize people who are not representing those groups, but any such change would need to be drafted with great care. I'll just finish this thought to ensure that. Sure, great, thank you. So just those rules need to be drafted with great care to make sure that they are balanced themselves and do not exclude people participating in good faith. So that would also be a reason to defer. So more than anything, for the sake of democracy itself, I ask that the bylaw as written not be adopted this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hellman. There could be some questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Brady, please. Roy? Welcome, Roy. If we could have your name and address for the public record.
Oh, of course. Roy Brady, Ware Street. Okay, also on delegations with a few extra points, really. I was caught sleeping last week, and I think others were too, because the report did state in it, quote, that a maximum of 10 delegations be permitted at a council meeting, unquote. Then it was justified, quote, in order to support efficient agenda management, unquote, as if the public speaking as part of the democratic process breeds inefficiency and is not so necessary. That was my impression. City council meetings are held not only for municipal politics to debate and vote, but so importantly for residents to address city council themselves or have other people do it. Do realize that the audience includes more than the residents in this gallery, but also at homes on live stream. This is sharing input, an essential part of the whole democratic process, as much as needs to be communicated. Otherwise, the public input, according to this report, is to be undemocratically restricted to as few opportunities as possible in as short a period of time as possible, all in the name of efficiency. Have there been serious problems with delegations? I haven't heard that it's expressed by you. There's been no particular public outcry or any outcry around the council table here. So if it hasn't been expressed publicly or democratically, there's no problem. You can find it easy to drop this one, that part. Because of restrictions toward delegations, there would at times be a lively competition to get on that proposed magic 10 list, such as apply on Tuesday, or maybe on Wednesday you wouldn't be eligible. Imagine to speak or not to speak at a mandated political forum being restricted. For this particular proposal, and for some others, cheering me, I'm sure, yes, there are separate parts. They're all important that need to be addressed, such as in this case, there's delegations, cell phones, notices of motion, deferrals, other business, and so on. Such occasions require additional delegations because all these challenges can't be crammed into one short delegation. Another problem affecting use of delegations is the city's regularity of having overloaded agenda items at one city. Often. Number, yes, and also complexities. This problem affects councillors to read, study further, then debate so much and devote so much attention. But residents thus experience related problems, such as overload that would likely increase the need and opportunity to address so much in such a short time. delegations then are even more necessary as part of the democratic process. Also, please do try to stop directly involving the non-political staff to assert political discourse and decision making. They have enough responsibilities and workload. They've got problems of provincial interference, research, so much detailed changing issues. Staff could still speak to councillors, but as residents. In general, deferring proposals allows for further serious study and reaction to public input, and then return with an improved version, reduce contents perhaps, and even at times withdrawal of it. So, from me, of course, the delegation section of this report needs to be removed. Absolutely. And realizing other contentions in the report, deferring the report in its entirety should be considered, seriously considered. Oh, and here's a novel idea. To examine these issues, important issues further, how about involving the public who weren't previously involved? And that would be real democracy. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Roy. There could be some questions. Questions for Mr. Brady? Councillor Baldwin, please.
Mr. Chair, just a comment first. Roy, it's always great to have you here and making a delegation to City Council.
What's that? Sorry.
It's always nice to have you making a
Oh,
delegation.
well,
to
thank
City
you.
Council.
Thank you. Then
Last year you weren't here.
I'll return.
Last year you weren't here nearly enough. You were missed. Last year you weren't here nearly enough. You were missed.
Well, I'll do something about that. Don't worry. Yeah.
Now the question, Mr. Chair, Roy, you made a statement about staff either making, saying things, but I know they're not casting a vote, and I refer to staff as subject experts. So, and the other point I want to make about that, and I'll ask you the question in a minute. Some of our staff are not City of Peterborough residents. So you say they are residents. They are residents, but they may not be residents of the City of Peterborough. How do we go about getting information from them if we don't ask?
Well, of course, they are to provide information. But this was a committee that did a lot more than that. It made very serious suggestions for how we conduct ourselves around this table and how people conduct themselves. So I'm not so sure that's where the staff should be involved. And I don't think they want to be.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Philip. If we could have your name and address for the public record, and you'll have 5 minutes, sir, to make a presentation.
Thank you. It's Philip Jolliker, 37 York Drive, Peterborough, Ontario. Of course, thanks, Mayor Leo, councillors, and city staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm here as someone who has had the privilege of working alongside Dr. Peggy Shaughnessy and the team at Right to Heal in Redpath Wellness Center over the past couple of years. I initially came into this work through marketing support, but very quickly it became something much more personal. Through this work, I have met people who are the success stories of Redpath. I've heard their words, I've listened to where they were, where they are now. These are not abstract outcomes or statistics. These are people who were once written off and are now showing up for their lives, their families, and their community because someone believed in them, and that believed in them when it mattered most. This issue is also personal to me beyond my professional involvement. I have family in this community who struggle with addiction and are on the streets. I've watched the impact ripple through families, relationships, and generations, and I've also lost close family members to a drug overdose and several to alcoholism. Those losses stay with you. It changes how you hear these conversations. It changes how you view responsibility, urgency, and compassion. We often talk about meeting people where they're at. Redpath does exactly that. This program is a proven piece of the recovery puzzle. It meets people who are ready for recovery where they are through accountability, structure, and deep personal work. It helps them rebuild their lives. This is not a quick fix and is not a Band-Aid. It's a model with a proven track record grounded in dignity, wellness, and long-term healing. An essential part of this work, and one that many of you already acknowledge, is the critical gap in our community for the need of traditional or transitional beds. All councillors agree that Peterborough does not have enough transitional housing options, particularly for people moving from treatment into stability. This funding request directly supports the planning of transitional beds at the Redpath location. These beds are not about warehousing people. They are about continuity of care, stability, accountability, and giving people a real chance to sustain recovery during the most vulnerable stage of their journey. Last week, as council discussed moving this funding request forward, something stood out to me. Every one of you that took the time to visit the new Redpath facility, ask questions, and listen directly to Dr. Shaughnessy voted in favor of moving this request to the next step. Those who did not visit expressed hesitation and asked for a deferral or did not support at all. That is not criticism, it's simply telling. Seeing the work matters, listening matters, understanding the scope of the heart of the program matters. I also want to acknowledge a moment that moved me emotionally. Councillor Parnell thanked Councillor Crowley for bringing Dr. Shaughnessy and Right to Heal to the table for discussion and support from the city. That moment mattered because I know how long and how hard Dr. Shaughnessy has been fighting for this community. This did not start yesterday. This has been years of persistence, advocacy, and showing up when it would have been easier just to walk away. Let me be clear, this is not about investing in one person. This is about investing in our community. It's about investing in a solution, not a temporary response. It is about recognizing that addiction is a growing complex issue that touches housing, mental health, safety, and families across the city. It was said during council discussions that addiction services and transitional houses fall under provincial responsibility. And although I understand that perspective, and I agree that provincial and federal governments must be doing more, at the same time, our city has stepped up before. We have supported Brock Mission, we've supported One City, and others. We recognize that while jurisdiction matters, so does leadership. Addiction does not wait for funding silos to be resolved. It lands in our community whether we like it or not. People who struggle with addiction are often abandoned long before they find help. Families burn out, friends lose hope, systems fail them, communities unintentionally give up. Dr. Shaughnessy has not given up. She shows up day after day, year after year, often outside the system, always judgment-free, always focused on healing, and always caring, and always without fail, offering a warm hug as people walk out the door. That human connection is not incidental. It is part of why this work succeeds. Like it or not, this is part of our shared responsibility as a community. Supporting those who suffer, supporting those who have knowledge, the heart, and the lived experience to help, and choosing to be proactive rather than reactive. And on a final note, as a board director of the Peterborough Kawartha Chamber of Commerce, and as a co-host of the upcoming Chamber AM on Tuesday, February 10th at 8 a.m., I'd like to personally invite all members of City Council to join us for coffee, networking, and a tour of the new Redpath Wellness Center alongside some of our city's business leaders. I truly believe that seeing this work firsthand and hearing directly from those involved continues to be one of the most powerful ways to understand its impact. Thank you for your time, and thank you for considering this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jellicoe. There could be some questions. Councillor Crowley, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. So, hi, Phil. Thanks for coming. That was really great.
Thanks.
I loved listening to that. That was fantastic. Thank
you.
you so much. But you also do a lot of work. I mean, I didn't know that you were coming to delegate tonight, but you do things to help the community directly too with your Harmony for Healing.
That's right.
Right? When is that? Because I think
Mr.
that's
Jellicoe, please.
important because that's also helping.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor. That's February 19th. It's in support of the Assertive Outreach Suicide Prevention Program. It's a sold-out show at Market Hall, but it's a 5-year initiative to help raise awareness around suicide.
Beautiful. And I'm waiting for my invite so that I can come and sing at it, but that's fine. Whatever, Phil. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks.
Councillor Duguay has joined us online. We've just confirmed that. Councillor Beamer, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Phil, thanks for being here. Through you, Phil, can you just talk quickly about how Redpath is or can be a good neighbor? Needless to say, there's been concerns this term around Trinity and Wolf Street and the challenges in those neighborhoods. Can you just talk about your experience with Redpath being a good neighbor or what the plan will be moving forward?
Phil, please.
Through you, Mary. Yeah, of course. I've had many visits at the Red Path building, both at their old location and their new location. Not once has there ever been an ambulance there. Not once has there ever been police there. Everybody that they treat has been respectful, kind, and they're there for a reason. They're there at a point in their life when they're ready to get better, and that's what Dr. Peggy Shaughnessy is there to do, and that's what Red Path does. Of course.
Any additional questions for Phil? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is George Horton. And if the deputy clerk, we want to reach him online, Natalie. Councilor Crowley, sorry. Okay.
Hello?
Proceed, Mr. Horton, please.
Hello?
Go
yes,
ahead,
this
Mr.
is.
Horton.
Oh, is this, I'm speaking to council now.
Yes,
okay,
you are, sir.
Hello, everybody. I hope okay. Hi,
We're
I
just
hope
great,
everybody
thank
can
you.
hear me okay. My name's George Horton. I live on 455 Stewart Street. I spoke to council before when the one city was asking for municipal funding. This is a similar organization, Red Path. And I just wanted to bring to everybody's attention to ensure there's consideration for people that live in the neighborhood. I think that's a very important aspect of these types of things and how these organizations affect people that live in the neighborhood that sometimes gets overlooked. Red Path moved into its current location, I think, at the beginning of last summer. And I, in fact, have to say that it has been pretty positive with them there. That corner the summer prior, summer 2024, was pretty negative. There was a lot of prostitution around that area, drug use and all sorts of things. But the Red Path Center seemed to be very positive. So I actually think I want to say the council should support them because I like the idea that they're focused on rehabilitation and healing. I sort of noticed that property was becoming more active, like more cars were parked there, people coming and going. I never saw anyone around there like smoking drugs, passed out on the grass, as I had seen over at the other places. It just generally seemed like improvement in the neighborhood. So I thought that was very positive. I don't know much about the organization itself other than following them on Instagram, and I understand Peggy Shaughnessy, there's a documentary about her, which I haven't seen yet. But just as somebody that lives like pretty much directly across the street from where they're wanting to set up, for me, it's been, they have seemed pretty positive. And if they continue down that path, I think that's generally a good thing. But yeah, so that's all I wanted to say to ensure everybody's just taking concern for how these things affect people that live in the neighborhood. So yeah,
Thanks very much, Mr. Horton, for your presentation. There could be some questions. Questions for Mr. Horton? No questions for you, sir. Thank you so very much. Next, Dr. Peggy Shaughnessy.
Thank you. Have
please.
a good day. Bye.
Welcome, Dr. Shaughnessy. If we could have your name and address for the public record, please.
Peggy Shaughnessy, Stuart Croft Crescent. Your worship, I'm here through worship to council for any questions.
Questions for Dr. Shaughnessy. Councillor Beaver, please.
Through you, Mayor, to Dr. Shaughnessy, thank you for being here. Similar to my first question, and Mr. Horton mentioned it as well, I'm always very cognizant of neighborhoods, and when we look at facilities like this, I don't think I have to get into it, but Trinity and Wolf Street have not been positive for those neighborhoods. High crime, low property values, vandalism. Can you just talk about how you'll work with the neighborhood with Redpath and what the history is working with the neighborhoods you're located in?
Dr. Shaughnessy, please.
Through your worship. Yeah, we so prior to the location at 271 Brock Street, where we are right now, we were at the old St. Andrew's Church. We were there for 3 years, so we never had a needle, an ambulance, a police officer, other than a coffee. When people come to our center, they have you might come in and you might be high at that time, but you're only going to do it once, and then you have to commit that you're going to start your healing journey. So we don't do harm reduction. I'm not against harm reduction. We do not do harm reduction at the center, and we've never had any problems whatsoever for overdoses. And people have total respect of our property, or they wouldn't be invited back.
Thank you, Peggy. Appreciate you being here.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Burke, please.
Mayor Leo, through you to Dr. Shaughnessy. Peggy, thank you so much for being here. This is awesome. I believe you received close to unanimous support at the last meeting for this funding, and that's a great thing. Definitely aware of the program at St. Andrews. I haven't been to the new site. One of the questions I had was around, I understand your program well enough to know that there is a healing component, but in this pitch, there is an affordable housing component. And the question I had, and I assume that part of this funding will allow you to explore the capacity for what that looks like. But can you just share with council, please, what the vision is in terms of the affordable housing portion of the project? Like what is your preliminary vision for that to look like?
And
Dr.
that
Shaughnessy,
is,
please.
oh, sorry, thanks, through your worship. Councillor Burke, just as I spoke with Brock Mission, I watched your council meeting last week, and I spoke with them on their process when they came in front of council for the 250,000. That, just like they said, this is a vision. This is totally separate from what we're discussing, how wonderful we are here tonight, because we already know that. What we're trying to move forward is transitional housing. So we need the funding in order to start the process of the preliminary parts of the vision. And then from there, see, one thing that we've never really had was the support from council. So with the support from council, then that shows that the government wants to get behind you as well. So the more that we come in front, the more people we come with new ideas and innovations such as this and add to what we need is the transitional housing, we can bring more funding to the city.
Thanks. And through the mayor, there definitely is an affordable, like a living component to this that differs from the old models where people that are taking your programming will also live on site.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Baldwin, please.
Yeah, thanks, your worship. Peggy, good evening. How many clients do you service in a year? Does it vary, or do you have a finite number there that you can speak to?
Probably 250, 300, maybe more. They'd know by when my staff, I could get that number for you. I'm just guessing right now, but when we put in for Ontario Health, we get funding through Ontario Health, so we do reports back to them how many people come through.
For you, your worship. Peggy, how long does it take for your clientele to no longer require your service, or do they always require your service?
Well, I guess through your worship, I guess that's a really difficult question because we're building community and we're building support, and that should never end in your life. So once you start coming to us, you have us for life. If you need us. But we have people come, they just do program, they go off and do their work or get their life back or whatever. And then you might have someone else that really loves, because we have so many other things other than just addiction treatment program, right? So that isn't even part of what we get funded for, we just do.
Okay, thank you very much. And Peggy, thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Councillor Riel, please.
Chair to Ms. Shaughnessy. Peggy, thank you very much for being here. A couple of questions. There are two streams of money on affordable housing and homeless streams and social services. Have you availed yourself to apply for either one of those funding streams for affordable housing through our social services department?
Through your worship to Councillor Real. So it looks like there might be two questions there. I'm not sure. But I did speak with Sheldon. We did sit down. I spoke to a few other councillors that on the invitation came to visit us, and we had chats on that I should probably come in front of council. So that's how this all started. And then we realized that it would be best to go for transitional housing, but we needed the sort of this money in order to start to make it beyond division. I really hesitated during that. I don't even know if that's what you asked me.
Councillor L, keep going.
Through the chair to Ms. Shaughnessy, there's also the HART fund, the $8 million that is allocated to the city of Peterborough, that is the forecast is the agency that's responsible for that. Have you tried to make an application or talk to forecast about applying for some of this, seeing that a lot of your things that you're doing, addiction, mental health, certainly that the work that you do, have you reached out to them to see if you might be applicable of an applicant for some of that money? Peterborough Housing Corp, certainly we're a partner there in providing some of the housing. So have you reached out to them to see if there's any funding available for Right to Heal?
Dr. Shaughnessy, please.
The Ontario Health Heart Hub, a call for proposal was issued to organizations already receiving Ontario Health funding. It was a highly detailed and competitive process with only a small number of hubs funded across the province. For this application, a group of established service providers, including Forecast, the Canadian Mental Health Association, the city, and the office of the MP, Dave Smith, came together to submit a proposal. As with any Ontario Health proposal, the application required detailed information on how funding would be used and which organizations were formally involved. The discussion we are having now about possible transitional beds is part of a future vision. Those beds do not currently exist as a program, service, or funded initiative. Because there is no defined project yet, there has been no basis to seek formal support or funding partnerships for that idea at the time. So if you ask me whether I approached Forecast for support, no. Forecast was not asked to support this concept, and they are not in the position to fund other organizations unless they have current beds now. They are, like others at the table, a service provider that receives funding for their own programs. In short, this is an early stage idea being explored, not an active funding proposal or partnership request. Your Honor.
Through the chair, Ms. Shaughnessy, perhaps my question was a little confusing. It's not if you making an application to be the proponent for the HART fund. It was an application for part of what the HART fund in, and part of that is transitional housing, which Peterborough Housing Corp has been a player of providing some of the housing. And I asked you if the proposal you're doing with the traditional beds that you're hoping to apply for, if you applied through Forecast, who is the agent for the HART fund in the city of Peterborough. And I asked if you had made applications through Forecast for money for that program of supplying transitional housing under that application of the HART fund.
Dr. Shaughnessy, please.
Through your worship. My understanding on what I'm coming in front of council once again is for the first section. Once I'm there, I'd be more than willing to speak with Forecast. Thank you.
Any further questions for Dr. Shaughnessy? Councillor Burke, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Leal, and to Dr. Shaughnessy, please, this question is not at all, it's just for my own personal clarity as the councillor that is in charge of homelessness and housing, and whereby we deal with a lot of requests similarly to this, which I would support either way. But I just, for my own self, I just need to get some sort of clarity around, because the motion specifically speaks to affordable housing. Like the ask is attached to the idea that there will be affordable housing produced. And I understand that it's just a vision right now, but council, if by council supporting this, the goal is to get you closer to that vision, which does include a certain number of units. Do you have any sense of how many units the building has capacity for, or would you be applying for capital funding to build out the building? Can you give us a sense of how many units, best case scenario, could be provided, please?
Dr. Shaughnessy, please.
To your worship. That's really hard. I'd like to say, in its transitional housing, that I would really like to say 20 units. But then I might be just BSing you, and I've been known to do that before, so I'm not really sure. But, you know, we have to work with the city. Like, we don't know what the foundation of that building is. Like, we need engineers. We need the support of the city who have the expertise to say, no, you're not going that high, or yes, you can. So, like I said, I'd love to say I could have 20 beds, but like I said, you can come and yell at me later.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Vasiliadis, you have a question.
Thank you, Mayor, through you, and thank you to Dr. Shaughnessy for being here tonight, and thank you for explaining to me when I came to visit you what you do. Yeah, I get it, and I understand it as much as I can, definitely. And so again, just to clarify, and from this is I mentioned this in a few remarks that I made during general committee. Again, this is not a grant or money for construction. It's to complete planning, preparatory work, and required to unlock greater provincial, federal capital funding is probably what you're looking for. So if people are asking, what's the plan? What's the plan? Is this the money basically is to develop the plan, right?
Your worship, yes, it is.
Okay. No, I just wanted that clarification too. I understand, and no, I'm happy you're here tonight, and thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Dr. Shaughnessy, for being with us this evening.
And thanks to you.
That concludes our registered delegations. The next item is consent agendas. 10A. Anybody want to speak to 10A? 10A? 10B? 10B? B? 10C? See. Oh, Kevin Duguay. 10C. Councillor Duguay?
Your worship, I trust you're able to hear me.
I'm sorry?
Mayor Leo,
Sorry, Councillor Duguay, we can't hear you.
are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Your worship, I spoke prematurely. I just wanted to advise council that I have a conflict with item 10I. I jumped the gun in part in this queue, but I just wanted to ensure that was identified as part of the agenda. And moreover, I have a pecuniary interest on items 10I and 14F. They are interrelated. Thank you.
Okay. But nothing on 10C.
No, that is correct. No.
Okay. 10D. 10E. 10F. 10G. 10H. 10I has been separated out because of the two decorations. 10J. Okay. 10K. Okay, 10K. It's already been separated out, Councillor L. 10K. Okay. 10L. 10L separated out. 10M. 10N. 10O. 10P. 10Q. 10Q. 10R. 10R. Okay. So if I get somebody to move 10A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, L, or sorry, M, N, O, P, Opie. Councillor Purnell, a seconder. Councillor Crowley, we'll go to a vote. No, 10K is on the consent list. Yeah. Correct. That's correct. It's been duly moved. We'll go to a vote. We got a seconder, was Councillor Crowley. Councillor Purnell, Councillor Crowley. It's carried. 10 ayes. Someone separated that one out. That's okay. It's been, we have a declaration of pecuniary interest there. It's been separated out. Somebody like to move and second it? Councillor Purnell, Councillor Baldwin, we'll go to a vote. And that's carried with the two conflicts duly noted. The next item is 10J. Councillor Hakey, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I have a feeling we're going to discuss this a lot, but I'd like to propose an amendment that I'd like to get out so we can discuss it and then talk to it afterwards. It's to change the number of speakers per item on the registered agenda. Do I need a seconder for that?
You do. Councillor Burke, are you, okay.
4. For discussion.
You have the floor.
Thank you very much. It was interesting to hear one of the common themes tonight was I don't think so much as timing as speaking to a specific issue. I happen to agree that I think limiting it to 10 delegations across the board, I find a bit too restrictive. I'd like to propose limiting it to, or opening it to 4 per item. Now, we all know as councillors sitting here that you're not going to get a discussion on every item every night, but it was Diane, Terry and Hale that had mentioned it, and subsequent speakers also. And I think that it is important for the public to have their say. I understand streamlining things. I think most of us do, but on different items, I think it is very important that the public does have their say. So I'd like to throw it out there for discussion and see where we end up. It was between 3 and 5. I picked 4, the middle ground. It's up to all of us.
Okay. I have Councillor Burke on the amendment and then Councillor Crowley on the amendment.
Yeah, Mayor.
You're fine.
Mayor Leo, through you, thank you. And, my Councillor Crowley was also going to move something similarly. And I think that this is all just a demonstration around how good governance works. We're presented with some changes and we're able to sort of make those changes. And look what happened tonight. Look what happened tonight. We're actually adopting a change that was presented to us by one of the delegates that came to speak to this. So that's a beautiful thing. It shows that the process does work. And it feels to me like a good compromise, and it doesn't freeze anyone out from a specific item. I'd like to also stick up a little bit for our staff because it was implied that they're the sole reason that our agendas can be heavy some nights and not heavy other nights. I do believe that we could do some work to sort of organize the cycle of what is on our agenda so we don't have such a misbalance. But I would believe, and I understand that staff are much in the same position as we are as councillors, which is they're doing their day-to-day work and then things come up, like five alarm thing, fire type situations come up, and they're also just doing their best to respond to the issues and the changes in policy the best that they can. I do agree that we could better streamline that process so that there isn't such a misbalance. But this is just the culture we're in, and I think I support Councillor Hakey's motion from the delegates' idea, and I think that's a great compromise, and it will allow for items on our agenda not to go without public input, which is an important part of our process. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the amendment.
Councillor Beamer to the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll support it as well. I think it's a good compromise. The genesis here is last term, as Councillor Baldwin alluded to, it was unlimited. And you would get 20, 30, 40 delegates. Sometimes you'd have to go 2 full nights. At the end of the day, we do have a duty to have efficient meetings and move the city's business along in a timely manner. However, there's the balance that we do need to listen and give the constituents an opportunity. So I think this is a good compromise. Kingston, just as an example, has 3 delegates, period. Not 3 an agenda, 3 the whole night, period. I think that's a little extreme. 10 was what we came up with, but I think this is a good compromise. Just through you to CEO Reyna, there's been some talk tonight about the agendas and staff working to sort of balance the agendas out and balancing contentious issues out. I know it's easier said than done, and I think staff do that anyway, but just to get you on the record, is that something staff will continue to focus on to try to have balanced agenda so there's not 3 contentious issues followed by a 20-minute meeting?
Mr. Reda, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely, we'll be working on that.
Thank you, CEO Reyna. So Mayor Leo, I think a fair compromise. It's what former Mayor Therrien came up with, a great idea, Diane, and we're here to listen. Thank you.
Further comments on the amendment? Councillor Rial, please, to the amendment.
Through the chair, it's interesting that here we're cherry picking stuff out of a procedural bylaw that was not written or had any input from councillors. And I made a deferral last week that we do exactly that. So here we are going to start picking apart bits and pieces of this procedural bylaw, which should have been done before it ever came here, and every one of us had an input on what we think the new procedural bylaw should be. I didn't have any input. There was 5 people from staff and 2 chairs. Well, the 2 chairs, their councillors, don't speak for me. I happen to be a participant in this. This is my workplace right here. Why don't I get a right to tell you what I think, how you should run this house or the people? So I'm hearing the councillor making bits and pieces. Well, we're going to go, instead of 3 and 5, I'm going to pick 4. This all should have been discussed before it ever came here by us. I'm having a problem with this because I was going to resubmit my deferral again to go back, and maybe we as councillors could finally look at the procedural bylaw that we want to run our house. Not cherry picking and looking at this and picking that apart, and whether you should have a cell phone or shouldn't you have a cell phone, or you should have, instead of 3 and 5, we'll have 4, all this stuff. That should have been long done, and debate should have happened before it ever come here by us. Not by senior staff. Now my 2 representatives are not picking on them, but you don't represent me. I represent the taxpayers who pay my salary. So I'm going to reintroduce, when I get a chance, the deferral that I brought back. I think it was 6-5 the vote, and see if I can pull it and go the other way, 6-5 in favor of a deferral.
Councillor Vasiliadis, please.
Yeah, I'm going to speak to the amendment and just the amendment, if that's okay.
Yeah, just to the amendment. Thank you.
Yeah. No, this idea was brought forward by a delegate tonight, and we're having the discussion tonight. And from everything I've heard tonight, this is when we were to have these discussions too. So I think 4 is a compromise. I think it's a reasonable compromise, and I'll definitely support it. I mean, we all, I think, are haunted by the BWXT delegations. I think it was 54. I've tried to look that up the other day, delegations, and yeah, that becomes a little one extreme. And this other with just 10 is another extreme. So I think this is a reasonable compromise, and certainly willing to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Vasiliadis, Councillor Crowley to the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. And my councillor to the right had mentioned, I was going to bring something like this. So thank you, Dave, for doing this, Councillor Hanke. And just to quickly address the contention that we have, that we didn't all get input. And one of the former speakers, Councillor Riel, made a fantastic point that we didn't all get input on this. We didn't all get direct input. We weren't all consulted, and we didn't come together as a big group and work on this and try to mold this into what we want. I do sort of, we did have a subcommittee that looked at it. I did speak with Councillor Beamer briefly, not anything official, but certainly like anything that you'd like to see in the procedural bylaw. We had, short conversation about it. I think that's sort of how a subcommittee works. And I think the fact that we are city council, I think this is our opportunity to then look at this document brought to us by a subcommittee that did fantastic work on it, by the way. Maybe we don't agree on some things. This is our opportunity to change it. I think that it's the perfect time for us to look at it and maybe cherry pick the odd line in the bylaw that we don't agree with. Maybe we want more delegates, maybe we want less, whatever we decide. But that's why we're here, and that's what we're doing right now, is to talk about that. So if we want to fix things, if there's things that we think are broken, then we have the opportunity now. This is our meeting for it. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Crowley. Councillor Lachika to the amendment.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you and to the amendment, I'd like to say that I appreciate the tone and the thoughtfulness that Councillor Hakey has used in bringing this forward, that the listening and appreciating with the public delegations to have brought it forward. And I really do, the idea of compromising to something like this is appealing, and I support that idea. However, it resonates with me what Councillor Riel has stated around the idea of consultation on some level. We at the beginning of our term and annually we meet about our strategic plan. We regroup about the things that impact how we're going to govern. Well, this has a significant impact on how we're going to govern, and it sits in a similar place. And so the fact that Councillor Crowley has stated that he had a consultation with one of the committee, that's great. But where we know that transparency is something that's really important, I will transparently say that no one consulted with me. I didn't know I was to reach out to be able to do that, and I was surprised by the proposed procedure bylaw changes when they came out in the agenda. We only had days to look at this with a very meaty agenda. To be able to reflect, to be able to do our own research, it's not adequate time. We haven't had the time to talk together even about what the priorities are for changes to our procedure bylaw. That is something that is the purview of this whole council, and we didn't ever take that opportunity. So there's a great deal that needs to be done around inclusiveness and consultation on common sense things, like something that is so significant to our public, to public voice, as our procedure bylaw. If we want to be a future prepared city, we need to talk to each other, we need to trust each other, and we need not to be impugning by some of the things that are coming forward in a proposed procedure bylaw. So you know, as much as I do support what Councillor Hakey has proposed, I agree with the idea that Councillor Riel is saying, let's look at this together for a short time, but to be able to have the conversations, given that we've heard from some of the public. And we appreciate that in informing our decision making. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Councillor Chica, I have Councillor Duguay, Baldwin, and Crowley on the amendment. Councillor Duguay, please. Councillor Duguay.
Thank you, Your Worship, and fellow council members. I'm inclined to support Councillor Hakey's recommendation. I do note that the 4 delegates that spoke this evening are very, very well versed in municipal procedures, municipal protocol, delegation related matters. What wasn't present this evening was the other 82,000 members of our public. But I do respect and listen very closely to the input provided by the 4 delegates. I have considered the bylaw in its entirety. I have no issues with the mayor and the 2 committee chairmen who have met with staff who have collectively advanced a procedural bylaw. They have considered, for example, the way our meetings operate, efficiencies, effective communications and the like. And I respect the outcome of their work, and it's evidenced in our proposed procedural bylaw. So I have no issue with how we got here, and I would not support a deferral. But I do support Councillor Hakey's recommendation. 4 delegates per item is important. And what I did hear this evening, I believe, is that related to delegates on statutory and budgetary items, there is no limit on delegations, and that's a very important distinction to make. So I will support Councillor Hakey's recommendation, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duguay. Councillor Baldwin to the amendment.
2 things, Your Worship. Certainly, I will be supporting the amendment and thank Councillors Hakey and Crowley for bringing it forward. I'm wondering, Your Worship, if I could ask the clerk a question.
By all means.
As I referenced earlier in the meeting, Diane, Tyrion, and I had been on the procedural bylaw committee meeting with staff 4 years ago. And we've made a few minor changes, one of which was to limit the number of delegates up to 10 per item. And that was referenced earlier by Councillor Beamer. I'm wondering, Mr. Clerk, could you explain for the viewing audience and those in the chamber, and for those who are on council who are sitting here, what the process was for the working group to be able to come up with the procedural bylaw recommendations that you have? Just a general overview of the amount of work that was done, the research that was done into other communities and other councils. I just think that would be important information to share.
Mr. Clerk, if you could respond, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, typically the working group may have met several times to convene and discuss procedural matters. As indicated, there was a number of staff conducted research among our municipal peers just to understand their procedure bylaws, understand how they conduct business, and to try to get a sense of some best practices out there. And those were shared with the working group to then assist in coming forward with what you see this evening.
But thank you, Your Worship. I'd be, again, I'm going to support the amendment and thank the councillors for bringing it forward.
Thanks, Councillor Bellman. Councillor Crowley to the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify that my discussions with Councillor Beamer weren't official consultations. It was just in the midst of an unrelated conversation about who knows what, and it was in passing. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Crowley. Any further speakers to the amendment? We'll go to a vote on the amendment.
I'm just worried about point of information.
Yes, Councillor Burke.
Is there an error in wordsmithing here because it says that it will exceed 4.
Mr. Potts, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, if I could take council to section 33 of the draft proposed bylaw. 33 reads, the city clerk may decline to include a delegation on an agenda if, and so the proposed wording actually matches the intent of the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure.
Vice Councillor Burke, we're good. And we'll go to a vote on the amendment. And it's carried. The amendment carries. Councillor Beamer, you're next.
I'll just move the amended motion.
That's 10J and a seconder for that. Councillor Hickey. And we'll start the debate. Councillor Burke.
Yes, Mayor Leal. In terms of efficiency, I won't repeat what I've said to speak out against what I feel is not aligned with any sense or reason. So I'd like to move an amendment on the member section of the bylaw to change the wording from be in possession of to communicate through. And I'll just try to walk. Do I need a seconder for that?
Well, we'll look, see what we have. We need one. Councillor Crowley, seconder. Okay.
Yeah, and so
Proceed, Councillor Burke.
this is also just in the spirit of trying to make sense of something and considering the other side and making some compromises. And what this language does is it's very important. I believe that the debate and the talk around how we communicate has been not very focused, actually. And you have to really read the bylaw. Like Commissioner Potts just corrected me on, what we voted on is also about what precedes it, right? So in this section that we're voting on that bans the possession of electronic devices, bans the possession of them. It's really in the section about members' conduct at a meeting. And it's really in a section that helps us define that we as members of council need to have our discussions be done properly and through the chair. Meaning that it's out of order for me to text Mayor Leal right now and say, hey, can you come to me first on item 10J? You know, that should be done when he gets to that item 10J on the agenda and I can put my hand up. That's the fair way to do it. So my stipulation and my changing of the wording is really about the whole section on how we as members are supposed to function and is changing the final caveat, section E, to say, which currently says not be in a possession of any electronic device that could facilitate a communication. It says, much like the sentence before it, which says not communicate except in pursuant to direction of the chair. Doesn't say tape Al's mouth shut until it's his turn. It gives me the option as a grown man to understand the rule. And so I am changing the wording, which would allow us, if we need, to have our personal cell phones on us, but it will very clearly and straightforwardly stipulate that we are not to communicate on that device to facilitate a communication that does not comply with paragraph D. Straightforward. I think it solves the problem that staff are trying to solve in a much more realistic way that we're able to follow. We have proven this whole term that we're able to follow the rules here. We have no open files from the ombudsman on our conduct in terms of how we function at a meeting. And if staff wants to stipulate how we use our personal devices at the meeting, then this is also accomplished with my change. It just limits the very awkward thing of the chairs having to police what I'm going to do with my phone. And that will be an awkward situation. I'm telling you, that will be an awkward situation. So this negates all of that. It is putting the onus on us to follow the rules. And it doesn't take these drastic steps that are being proposed that no other municipality, including the municipalities that were consulted in the report, are taking. This wording aligns much more closely with how other municipalities govern communications at a meeting. So just to be clear, I'm changing I'm taking out the idea of not to be in possession of, and I'm asking for us to not communicate through an electronic device. And that includes this electronic device, which I'm still unclear how that's going to be policed, because to me, that this falls under the definition as the bylaw is written as an electronic device. So I'll take a breath. So does the microphone. So so listen, what I'm proposing is just a simple word change that allows us to follow what is in this section, which relates to how we conduct ourselves at this meeting and advises us to communicate through the chair when it's our turn. Thank you very much.
Mr. Potts, please, and then Councillors Crowley, LaChico, Real. Mr. Potts, please.
Sure, Mr. Lee, I don't have a question for Mr. Potts. Thank you very much.
Oh, but he put his hand up to provide some clarity. Mr. Potts? No?
Can assist if there's a question, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Crowley then.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the delegates, they came up and I apologies, I'm not sure who said it, but they were mentioning how they think that there's a lot of council business that's done behind the scenes. And they were saying, oh, people come out and they come out and they already have their minds made up and they're already talking. And I think that I can understand part of the reason that this bylaw is proposed, because just like there's people in the community that think council is colluding behind the scenes, behind closed doors. Well, if I have my phone and I'm texting Councillor Baldwin and I'm saying, you got to go with me on this vote. Or I'm saying to Councillor Beamer, yeah, are you going to vote with me on this? Or I'm talking to one of the staff members and I'm saying, hey, I'm going to ask you this question. So this question this will really help me out. But that's all stuff that's done behind the scenes. It shouldn't be happening on a phone. I agree with Councillor Burke that it does seem like a little bit much, that maybe we shouldn't be in possession of it. Having it in my coat pocket, having it in my pants pocket, I mean, really, we shouldn't be using it. At the same time, it's not, there's no ability to FOI that. If I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing with council business on my phone and somebody in the gallery says, oh my gosh, you know what? I think what Councillor Crowley did was way offside and I'm going to go to the Integrity Commissioner and we have to get FOI his phone. Well, I did it on my personal cell phone. So you're all out of luck. We need to ensure the integrity of what we're doing here in council chambers, and doing it on my personal cell phone doesn't do it. And I don't care if there's a young person out there that won't run for council because, oh my God, I can't have my phone with me in council. That's not the point. We do council business here. We do it in public so everybody can see exactly what we're doing, exactly what we're talking about. They can hear the questions that I'm asking staff. They can hear the questions that I am asking of other councillors.
Yes.
That being said, the proposed change that the Councillor Burke's making here still doesn't let me use my iPad, which kind of irks me because I use that for all my reports and it saves paper and stuff, but still, it's a minor inconvenience at worst. So I'm going to support Councillor Burke. I think that it's a worthy notation here. I think it's a worthy change, but let's not fool ourselves that this is not fascism run rampant by saying we can't have a cell phone on our desk during a meeting or can't be using it during a meeting, excuse me. So anyway, that's my
Councillor, we want to get some clarity on what the amendment you're proposing. The clerk has to, if you could just.
Yeah, so Mr. Clerk, thank you. On page 83 of the draft bylaw, there's a section called members, which dictates as members, how we're supposed to speak to one another at a meeting. And there's a paragraph E or subsection E, which says that we're not to be in possession of an electronic device that could facilitate a communication that does not comply with paragraph D. Paragraph D talks about how we're only supposed to communicate through the chair. So I am proposing that we change the phrase not be in possession of and replace that phrase with not communicate through. So we're taking out not to be in possession of, and we're changing that to not communicate through.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. And you have a second. Okay, Councillor Chica to this amendment, please. Councillor Chica.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I have an amendment to the motion that Councillor Burke has put forward to the use of the language. I'd like to add, except for emergency or family reasons. And I say that genuinely and from the bottom of my heart. There are people that want to engage in perhaps a campaign to run for council in upcoming years, who may have children, who may have a very ill or close to death parent or loved one, or someone who might be in crisis or in need. And it is a family status issue not to be able to have two-way communication for emergency purposes. And there are single parents with infants who should not be excluded for participating in municipal government because they are not allowed to have a cell phone on their body should there be some reason that that they need to be reached. So this is an issue that has to do with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. I mentioned the Labor Code last week. This is on that level, and it's a human rights issue based on family status. And I think that language would be really important. I agree, if we want to lift up professionalism and communication, and that's the motive behind this, then let's just change the language from not being possession of, and I can support what Councillor Burke is bringing forward around communication of a nature that is work-related. Thank you very much.
Councillor Burke, Councillor Crowley, there is an amendment. Are you okay with the proposed wording from Councillor Chica, just to include it in a? Okay, Councillor. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, we're dealing with the amendment to the amendment. So I have a new speakers list to the amendment. You want to speak to the amendment? To the amendment, okay. Just one moment, Councillor Hill, do you want to speak to the amendment to the amendment? I don't want to lose anybody here.
Well, this is a roundabout way of supporting him. The comments I'm going to make is if we would have gathered together to talk about this in cell phones, I have to declare a disability because my cell phone is hooked to my hearing aids. So nobody asked me, and nobody that made this motion or this procedural bylaw here, but I have to declare that I have a disability. I shouldn't have to do that. If we would have all collectively got together and talked about the changes to the procedural bylaw.
I just want to get back to the amendment.
Yeah,
to the amendment.
but I mean, he's making another cherry picking something and making an amendment. I have to wear my cell phone for my hearing aids because it is a device for me for volume control and other things with my hearing aid. So therefore, the cell phone should be allowed in this room. I don't know if anybody else has that, but it's on mine. And I'm not going to ask you, and I'm not going to ask the chairs if it's all right for me to have a cell phone.
We're just speaking to the amendment to the amendment.
Yeah, but the whole thing, there shouldn't even be the debate here about cell phone.
Point of order, if I may, Your Worship.
Yes.
Thank you. To Councillor Riel's point, and I meant to add this as well, accessibility. Absolutely. Okay. Family status and accessibility issues. Thank you.
Councillor, Mr. Clerk, did you have we got Councillor Burke moved the amendment to the amendment, and Councillor Crowley seconded the amendment to the amendment. Or Councillor Chica. Okay. Okay, now, do you want to speak to the amendment to the amendment?
Mr. Mayor, I'll just be brief, but this is just what I was trying to say when I feel like we're getting off track because we're talking about how we're supposed to do city business. We're really talking about stuff that falls under our code of conduct. We have a separate code of conduct that governs how we're supposed to act as city councilors in terms of how we're supposed to do business. This is the procedural bylaw. Okay? This is the procedural bylaw, which is about the procedure of how these meetings are run, general committee and council. And so therefore, I kind of did a hot second take here. I think the line that we're all up in arms about only applies to this meeting and how we communicate with each other in the chair, because that's what the previous bullet points reference. So I support the amendment to the amendment, but I actually don't think it's necessary, because I believe it's just not asking us. I believe my solution to say not communicate through would be enough. It would still allow us to do what we need to do for personal reasons or for note taking or for preparation in a meeting on an iPad. I believe that this section is very specifically about how we're supposed to communicate with one another at a council meeting, and as making sure that we don't communicate with one another at a council meeting besides through the chair and in the way that the subsequent bullet points in that member section lay it out. So I think that I will support the amendment to the amendment, but I don't actually think it's necessary in reading the whole subsection, because it's very specifically around how we're supposed to communicate with each other in the chair. Thank you.
To the amendment,
To the
please.
amendment to the amendment. I'm also going to agree with Councillor Burke that I don't think it's necessary, because I think it sort of encapsulates how we conduct meetings with each other. However, if I may ask staff a question.
Go ahead.
Ms. McFarland. Hi, welcome. Regarding assistive devices, it's a really great point that Councillor LaChica made. Is there already city legislation in place or Ontario legislation in place that would supersede anything in our procedural bylaw that would allow somebody with a disability to not have to publicly state that they have a disability? Somebody who's a councillor, maybe, who might have a disability, who is running for council and comes on board and has an assistive device, they would just be able to use it and not have to go through any sort of hoops with the chair. That would be taken care of through some sort of legislation.
Mr. McFarland, please.
Through the chair, there is the duty to accommodate under the Ontario Human Rights Code. There is a process involved in that, so they would have to disclose a disability of what the accommodation needs are, but not publicly in this type of forum. It would probably be between them and the chair, or I'm not sure what the process with council would be, but if there's a bona fide medical reason or family status issue or something that is under the grounds, under human rights, we would have to explore accommodations. So that would not need to be in the procedure bylaw.
That's fair. Then I don't think it's required. And I think having that amendment to the amendment, or yes, I'm a little getting confused here. Having that specific wording in this would maybe be unneeded. It would be a duplication of effort, and I don't think it's required, because I think legislation supersedes this. So,
thanks, Councillor Crowley. Councillor Purnell, to the amendment to the amendment.
Yes, thank you. The previous speaker did ask an important question. I was going to just confirm through you, Your Worship, to staff, how we would indeed handle accessibility, which we must do. That's a given. And if there was a family emergency, through you, I would totally expect a simple communication with the chair, and exception could be made in such a situation. But that's just would be the right thing to do in that situation. And there are ways to reach us. There are ways to reach us for sure. But through you to perhaps Mr. Potts or the clerk, I'm not sure who wants, but how would we handle an emergency situation if somebody came to a meeting and that they had a family member who was not well and they actually still came to the meeting? How would that work?
Mr. Potts, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. That specific, I think I need to start with how one reads paragraph E of section 18, and Councillor Burke has actually made the point quite well, and that is that everything about paragraph E related to electronic devices is subject to the chair's directions. And so I think this point was discussed amongst the working group. I'm not sure that it's been adequately made in this discussion, but the intent of the bylaw, at least the way it's been drafted, is that the presiding chair may make a direction that's specific to a meeting, or may even have a standing direction that is published in the agenda to the effect that electronic devices provided at the meeting may be used for the purposes of the e-scribe and for communicating with the city clerk. And I think I'm not going to be specific, but my understanding, a previous term of council, that a member with a need was accommodated by means of electronic means for a differently abled reason. So the chair's directions can extend. Well, first of all, there's nothing precluding a member from providing the city clerk's contact information to be contacted in any manner of emergency or urgency during a properly constituted meeting. And members also have the right, if there's an urgent need that arises without it being inspired from an incoming communication, a motion to recess is always available. But I think the most important point, having listened to the debate, is to go to paragraph 18D. The intent is that the presiding chair gives directions that actually enable the use of electronic devices, but scopes how they're to be used. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and Commissioner Potts. That's exactly what we all need to understand. Is the procedural bylaw is an overriding document on how we will run our meetings in a very open, transparent, clear way, with communication going through the chair. Any exception or emergency or accessibility can still all be handled. Those have all been contemplated and would be accommodated without having to publicly disclose things or what have you. There's no reason to, throughout the whole body of work that's taken a couple of years and significant consultation through legal, through the clerk's office, through the ombudsman, consulting with other municipalities. And by the way, 3 members of council on the working group and the 2 portfolio co-chairs. So the procedural bylaw covers all of that. Anything exceptional that comes up can be accommodated. Thank you.
I have Councillor Hickey speaking to the amendment, and then Councillor Chica for a second time to the amendment. Councillor Hickey on the amendment to the amendment.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. We heard Accessibility Act is covered, but through you to Mr. Potts, human rights was mentioned in the labor code. Would we be contravening any of those policies with this?
Mr. Potts, please.
I think the Director of People and Culture referenced a duty to accommodate, the need to identify the need for an accommodation. And the example has been provided that the city has in fact done that for the purposes of the meetings that it conducts for a differently abled person. So that would be the context for accommodation, which is something that's contemplated by the Ontario Human Rights Code. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Potts. And Mr. Chair, a comment. In this term of council, my father-in-law passed away when I was attending a council meeting. And if you remember, I spoke to you beforehand saying that I may have to run. I didn't disclose it publicly. And I had my phone, and my wife had said to me, I better get there, and I left the meeting early. So to Councillor LaChica's point, it is a very legitimate situation that can arise. But I think I'm okay with me going to the chair and mentioning it, and that's the accommodation I would expect, and that appears to be the accommodation that this bylaw does address. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Chica, a second time on the amendment to the amendment.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, I absolutely believe this language should be here. And I've spent a lot of time this week researching, and I mentioned earlier that I did call a labor lawyer. very renowned Toronto labor lawyer, who said there is indeed a family status concern about something like this being written into a bylaw. Because there are minors who cannot contact the clerk by phone, who may have had an accident, who may be in need of their parent for some reason. And if I do not have a phone, the child knows to phone my number, not a clerk, not through the red tape and administrivia of what it would take to get through to a parent. It is discriminatory to a counselor to not be able to have on their body a two-way means of communication. And that's stated, if you read the language in the interpretation of the Ontario Health and Safety Act, that language is there. It must be two-way communication. Paramedics are meeting very acute needs, and this is what the labor lawyer told me, very acute needs of people in life and death situations, and cannot be distracted, but they are allowed to have a phone on their body in case they have a personal emergency in their family or a need of a child that's trying to reach them. This language needs to be explicit. I'm not sure, and I wasn't told by the Procedures Committee whether this was even vetted through our accessibility office or through our accessibility staff. There is not to have to disclose a personal ability issue publicly because we're being recorded to the chair is not something. It's a privacy issue, and it's not something we should need to do. We don't have working phones for counselors because we don't have offices or desks that are two-way communication. Nobody's answering phones in this building when a council meeting is happening at 10 p.m. at night. And we need, for safety reasons, as human beings and as citizens of Ontario, like every other worker, to be able to have access to two-way communications, direct communications from a family member or someone in crisis that we take care of. And that issue was not addressed earlier. Accessibility was mentioned and differently abledness, but family status is a legitimate issue. I also contacted the Ombudsman this week, and the Ombudsman absolutely told me with the utmost clarity that there is no vetting for procedural bylaws, including any item like this, that happens through the Ombudsman's office or has happened through the Ombudsman's office. It is beyond their scope. They don't provide legal recommendations or bylaw creation recommendations to municipal councils. They only can give information about what exists in other municipalities. We heard last week that there is no other municipality that has overreached to the point of saying that councillors are not allowed to have a cell phone on their body. If we need to have trust and more respect for each other, then let's just have it and agree that that will happen. But let's not take away the human rights that we have as individuals and for those who will run for council in the future. We don't need to overreach like this. Let's build trust. Let's build optimism for those who want to participate. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Duguay, speaking to the amendment to the amendment.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you, Your Worship and colleagues. I appreciate the comments from Director McFarlane insofar as the duty to consult. I appreciate the context of that legislation. Colleagues, I haven't witnessed throughout this council term, and like Councillor Hickey, I had a family emergency involving my mother's health, which I had to deal with while attending council meetings. But my family, in this case, know how to reach me not only through my personal cell phone, but if necessary, while some might view it as being archaic, but they certainly could still send me an email directly to my city email. And in front of each of one of you this evening is a monitor in which those emails could be received. And there are mechanisms for emergency procedures. I'm not making light of the matter, but other than Councillor Hickey's incident, and there was a moment where I thought I might have to also leave for emergency purposes. I'm not certain. I think we are overspeaking the issue. Now,
fundamentally, Your Worship, I know we're talking about an amendment to the amendment, but I'm still struggling with why any other than if it is associated with a disability, why any counselor, why any elected official would need to have a personal cell phone at their disposal during a council meeting. I can see no reason for it. For example, this evening, Your Worship, colleagues, I'm able to attend your meeting virtually. I'm working from a city-assigned laptop. I'm working from printed agenda material. And I was able to send a Microsoft note to the clerk indicating that I was available for this meeting. That's all public information. I did not need at all during this, for purposes of this meeting, to make use of a personal device for any reason. I just don't know why it is appeared to be such an obstruction or an impediment for other councillors to be able to carry out their office. Those are my comments.
Point of order.
But I do recognize that there are circumstances where persons with disabilities may need such a device. That's recognized and that would need to be accommodated. Thank you, Your Worship.
Point of order.
My point of order is that the previous speaker has just stated that it is an impediment. The use of the word impediment to have a family status issue, which I explained in detail, that some of us are parents of minors, young children, and there may be future counselors that have babies or toddlers or babysitters taking care of their children. And I feel that that was disregarded, and the use of the word impediment for anything that has to do with family status and accessibility is inappropriate. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Point of order duly noted. Councillor Purnell to the amendment. And I have a question to Mr. Potts on the ombudsman. Councillor Purnell to the amendment.
First, sir, Councillor Duguay was interrupted while he was speaking. Is he finished?
He said he was concluded. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much.
I got it.
Okay, so very quickly, where we are getting into the weeds here that we need not enter into. One of the major points of this new procedural bylaw is to really streamline things down from 23 pages to 12. We have removed a lot of the references that were in there before that really did duplicate other legislation, including the Municipal Act, the Code of Conduct, accessibility legislation, as we've heard. Those things do not need to be in the procedural bylaw. They are covered by other legislation that is already there and would override the procedural bylaw anyway. So that's, I mean, the points are well taken. I understand that, but all of these points can be easily handled. We're not on an island in the middle of nowhere. And we do have to try and remember one of the main focuses was to make the procedural bylaw easier for everybody, make our meetings more transparent for everybody in the public to see what is being said and what questions are being asked and the answers and all of that, and not through any type of devices. So I'll leave it at that, but those are the important points.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mr. Potts, I have a question on the role of the ombudsman and his review of the procedure bylaw. If you could respond, please.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. We didn't ask the ombudsman, nor would the ombudsman offer to review a draft of a procedure bylaw. I will say that I reached out to, wearing my city solicitor hat, a colleague. I know several of the senior colleagues in the office of the ombudsman. It was a consultation that I shared with Mr. Kennedy. It was under the heading of what I would say informal. It was a discussion about the risk of the perception, which is as important as reality. And by that, I mean the discussion that we have had internally here at the city includes, and this is for council to decide, because the procedure bylaw on how council conducts its meetings is not about its relationship with staff. It's about council's relationship to the citizens that it serves. And those citizens, the open meeting rules that included after amendments to the Municipal Act to make very clear about the specific grounds upon which council could have closed meetings. but conversely, the general rule being that they must be open meetings. And the assignment to the ombudsman a number of years ago now of closed meeting investigations, the first foray by the ombudsman into municipal affairs, which is now broadened, as council knows. And the overriding policy objective in the drafting of the bylaw being that the citizens that this council serves should be able to believe their eyes and their ears when they watch decisions being made. And that means that an agenda that has to be published. It means open session reports unless there's a specific reason to be able to have a reporting camera. The procedure bylaw has implemented measures the council knows I've recommended previously, and that the ombudsman celebrates, and that is, for example, the recording of closed meetings, all of which is intended to give the citizens that you serve, the council serves, confidence that they can believe their eyes and their ears in terms of how decisions are made. So the consultation with the ombudsman was a brief written exchange. It addressed the possibility. I mean, we know this, but the ombudsman's office, legal counsel, also observed that, for example, a series of communications could result in illegally closed meetings if it involves the majority of members of council, a quorum, and a quorum could be something less than a majority if there's declarations of interest. Not discussed with the ombudsman, but discussed with Mr. Kennedy as a related issue that I don't think has been considered. And that is that any device, personal or otherwise, used during a properly constituted meeting could produce electronic records that would be the subject of a records request. There is precedent. It comes from a municipality that I used to serve, where an individual member of council's personal email was found to be in the custody and control of the municipality. And that email happened outside of a properly constituted meeting. Frankly, electronic messages during a properly constituted meeting, I think, would make the better case. But all of these issues were within the contemplation of the consultation that did happen with the ombudsman's office. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boss. Is there any more speakers to the amendment to the amendment? We'll now go to a vote on the amendment to the amendment. Mr. Kennedy, can you just walk us through here, please? Because I don't want to miss anything.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just at the moment, it's been moved by Councillor Chica and seconded by Councillor Burke that the amendment be amended as follows. If I understand correctly, it's to add the wording to section 18E. And the words are as follows: except for family status or accessibility purposes. So if that's the correct wording.
Is that correct? Okay,
That's correct.
thank you. Councillor Baldwin, please.
I just point of order, but I just like,
Just,
can I point of order? What Councillor Parnell just did, whisper to you off mic, is exactly what we're talking about here. This whole this whole section is about how we communicate with one another around the table, and then that needs to be done through the chair. So
I didn't hear any whispering, so just for the record, Councillor Burke. Councillor Baldwin, I did see your hand. Councillor Baldwin?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. The question I have is, are we to take this whole procedural bylaw, the first amendment to the amendment, and then there's going to be another one, the amendment? Is there going to be any more cherry picking as we go along? Because I'm reluctant to vote positively on this if it's going to have an impact on the next piece, or vice versa. So it would be easier for me to see all of the amendments and then vote on it, as opposed to doing this one, then another one, and then another one. This just from a personal perspective, Your Worship. So I guess I'm asking the clerk, is it better to do it that way, or do we have to, John, procedurally do it this way?
Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Your Worship. Our current procedure bylaw would direct that there's one amendment permitted to an amendment.
I'll go ahead and vote then. Thank you.
And just for the record, Councilor Work, I was listening to the clerk because I asked him for some clarification. It wasn't Councilor Purnell. Anything further on this? We'll go to a vote on the amendment to the amendment. Councilor Duguay, we don't have a vote from you yet.
Apologies, Your Worship. I'm having technical difficulties, but I will return to e-scribe momentarily.
Okay. And that's carried. Now we're going back to the amendment. Mr. Clerk, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. It's been moved by Councillor Burke and seconded by Councillor Crowley that section 18E be amended to replace the words "not be in possession of" with "not communicate with any." And of course, that's been subject to the amendment we just voted on. So perhaps I could just clarify that wording with the mover.
Councilor Burke, please.
As soon as I see it cast, I'll. That seems fine. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Clerk.
Your Worship, would you like us to then cast the vote for this?
Is there any further comments on this one? Most people have already spoken twice.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly that to me, the real game changer to this was reading page 82, the section about members, and it's pretty self-explanatory. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to a vote. And that amendment is lost. So now the main motion as amended was moved by Councillor Bieber and seconded by Councillor Hickey. Comments or questions? Councillor Rial, please. The main motion, that's 10J as amended.
I'm deeply concerned with the recent changes to the council's procedural bylaw. While efficiencies in council meetings is important, it should never come at the expense of transparency, accountability, or meaningful public participation. What is particularly troubling is that these changes were developed by city staff without meaningful input from all of city council, despite the fact that the procedural bylaw governs how elected officials conduct their business in council chambers. Decisions about how council functions should be shaped first and foremost by those elected to represent the public. These changes restrict the public's ability to engage with their elected representatives and limit the opportunity for residents to be heard on matters that directly affect their lives. Public participation is not an inconvenience to be managed. It is the cornerstone of democracy and local government. Council chambers should be a place where residents feel welcome, respected, and encouraged to participate. Reducing public input risks eroding trust in municipal government and creates a perception that decisions are being made about the community rather than with it. I believe good decision making is strengthening, not weakening, by public scrutiny and engagement. Any procedural changes that diminish the engagement deserve careful reconsideration, broader consultation with council, and meaningful input from the public. So I will not be supporting the procedural bylaw changes on that. And I think what's happened tonight is cherry picking this and cherry picking that, when if we would have had, and that's all of council, an open dialogue on how the procedural bylaws or how we conduct our business on behalf of the public here in our workplace, then we wouldn't be going through this. We would have some procedural bylaws that account for everybody and make this work. So thank you very much.
Councillor Baldwin, please, to the main motion.
Yeah,
as amended.
Yeah, as amended, Your Worship. Thank you very much. Your Worship, I want to thank the committee and staff for their work on this. I think Councillor Parnell had alluded to the number of meetings and the clerk to a question I'd mentioned. Listening to my ward mate here, I think the concern that the councillor might have with respect to listening to the public, we've demonstrated tonight that we have listened to the delegates, and as a result of their delegation, council sitting tonight has made a change on the fly because we have heard that. With respect to the communication devices, I believe we're in the throes of making that decision tonight. So given all the work that's been done, given the changes we've made and the dialogue we've had tonight, Your Worship, I feel comfortable in supporting the procedural bylaw.
Main motion as amended. Councillor Burke, please.
Through you, Mayor Leo, a question to staff, please. You know, the staff report is fine. It's one thing. It goes in detail. It goes into detail around the sort of justification and rationalization around creating the bylaw. I'm looking at a draft bylaw that says I'm not to be in possession of any electronic device that could facilitate a communication. That's the bylaw. That's as plain as day. So how does staff justify us being able to have this electronic device and not another electronic device?
Councillor Burke, who do you want to pose the question to?
No idea. Whoever can answer it.
Well, we'll go with Mr. Potts.
Your Worship, thank you. Probably a version of an answer I gave previously, but you have to read. One should read paragraph E in conjunction with paragraph D. It comes back to the presiding chair's directions. It's contemplated that the chair will give a direction that members of council obviously should be able to use microphones, the equipment on the desk, Microsoft Outlook for the and eScribe for the purpose of, casting votes and participating in the meeting, for communicating with the city clerk electronically. And that's all accommodated. It could be on a per meeting basis, or probably more efficiently and effectively if it were just built into the agenda and subject to the chair's different direction from time to time, or additional directions as circumstances warrant. Thank you.
Councillor Burke, further?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that answer, but the answer is not in the bylaw. So 10 years from now, it would be very tricky for a whole new group of people and city staff to interpret the bylaw, which clearly states all electronic devices. This is some of the nuance where on one hand we want transparency, and this is a movement towards transparency, but on the other hand, there's some real gray area with this bylaw. And it reminds me of the gray area we experienced with our portfolio chairs bylaw, which Guy Giorno sort of referenced a couple meetings ago in his interpretation of it, and he's a lawyer. So it's fine that we have some clarification on the fly. But to me, the thing that we're passing tonight and the thing that's going to be set in stone is the bylaw. And no matter how you package it up, no matter how you justify it, at the end of the day, we're putting forward something here that says any electronic device. And it confounds me that that this is happening when it's really specifically talking about one thing. To me, when I read this, it says any electronic device.
Councillor Lucica to the main motion as amended, then Councillor Baldwin. Councillor Lucica, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you to council, we just passed an amendment to an amendment with a 7-4 in favor of acknowledging accessibility and family status as issues for having a personal device. And so the conundrum is, how then can we turn the other way and then say you can't have any personal devices, period? It's just oxymoronic to me. I don't understand. And to me, it just shows us that we are not prepared to go through and go forward with this proposed bylaw as it is, because there's conflict in terms of the understanding of what exists on the page of this report and what we desire in order to be equitable and not discriminate against councillors. I would ask us, each one of us, how would we feel if we could not be reached by our loved one if one of them had a heart attack, God forbid, or had a fatal accident? This is not a situation where we can expect others who would be dealing with that situation to reach out to the chair of this meeting, which changes as to whether it's general committee meeting, a planning meeting. That this is just unprecedented. It doesn't happen anywhere. It defies the Human Rights Code and the Labor Code of Ontario. So do we want to have people appealing to those bodies because it's unfair? Every staff member, every journalist in this room is allowed to have 1, 2, whatever devices they want. But the councillors who are doing the work of this municipality for their constituents can't look up an article or can't look at their notes that they took a couple of weeks ago because they keep it on their iPad. This is ludicrous. This is not the future of what a municipal government should be. So I support the deferral because this is not done and this is not appropriate in how it's been analyzed. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Lucica, there's no deferral on the floor. The main motion as amendment was moved by Councillor.
Pardon me, against the main motion. Thank you.
Thanks. That's quite all right. Councillor Baldwin to the main motion as amended.
Yeah, Your Worship, this is the second time, just in case you're keeping track. So
I'm keeping very close track.
Okay. So my question with respect to the concern that Councillor Burke had raised previously, I'd like to ask Commissioner Potts. David, there would be times for councillors to receive educational training. I suspect that given the debate that we've had, I think the councillor had referenced, 10 years from now, we won't even know what the bylaw means. Would it be something that the CEO and in conjunction with your office might think about doing an educational topic at the beginning of every term with a new council with respect to the procedural bylaw, so that those who are sitting here would have an understanding of the bylaw? I guess I could go through CA Reyna rather than Commissioner Potts.
Mr. Reyna, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we are having every year a council a workshop. So we are planning one in the March. So that will be a standard protocol. We will be reviewing it and discussing it with the council.
Councillor Hankey to the main motion as amended. Sorry. Good. Councillor Hankey.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As you know, I chair finance. One of the things that I guarantee I will do is before the meeting, I will be asking people if there's any accommodations that they require, and they can come to me and speak to me about them. And again, having been in that situation, I understand the importance of it. The other thing that I just wanted to say is Councillor LaChica referred to it's against the, I believe you said the Human Rights Code and the Labor Code, but we determined that that is not the case here earlier. Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood then. Councillor LaChica, maybe you could.
There are different legal opinions, and I sought the legal opinion of two lawyers outside of these city offices this week. And they told me contrary to the advice that we've had today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for
Councillor
that.
Hickey, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. And our city solicitor has said that that is not the case. And I'm going to go with our city solicitor. But again, getting back to the main motion, I'm glad it was explained to me properly, because I do understand that the chair has full discretion to make any adjustments that are required at that meeting. Again, for me, I'm going to state up front earlier than the meeting begins and ask people if there's any accommodations that they need, and I'd be happy to make them. So I don't have an issue. Actually, my phone's been off all night, and it's been a treat because it's not ringing. My family knows where to get a hold of me if there is an issue. And if I thought that I had a need for a phone, I would speak with the chair tonight and ask for the permission. I'm okay the way that it is written. We've made some changes. And again, and I don't think I was really clear, but there was 4 speakers in particular tonight that spoke very well, that made me realize that we do have to make some changes. And not only did we make the changes, they were the right changes based on the input from the public. So contrary to what some people may believe, I do listen. Not necessarily at home all the time, but I do listen at council, and I think that it was what we've done tonight is a good compromise. We've extended questions from 1 to 2 last week, and we can be concise, and that's one of the issues. We all can speak very short and very concisely if we're required to, and I think that that's important for the speakers to understand also when they're up here. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hickey. Councillor Burke for a second time.
Thank you, Mayor Leo. And this is just in response to Councillor Baldwin. It is my personal belief that a bylaw should not need to be translated, and that a bylaw should not need an education session. It should be clear to everyone involved. And, I'm just raising a point to me that's very unclear. Maybe it's just the fact that I'm the youngest on council. Like, I understand how I can use this thing in the exact same way as I can use my phone. And it's like absurd to me that this is allowed when the bylaw explicitly says any electronic device. Thank you.
And Councillor Burke, any further comments? It's been moved by Councillor Beamer, second by Councillor Hickey. We'll go to a vote. And that is carried 8-3. The next item is 10L. 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 Sorry, Councillor, I think it was 10L. You flagged for me. So you don't want to discuss 10L. Somebody would like to move 10L? Councillor Beamer, Councillor Purnell. We'll go to a vote. 10M. 10M. Councillor Parnell, 10M. Councillor Baldwin, you second 10M. Any further comments or questions? We'll go to a vote. That's carried. Councillor Crowley, 10Q, you wanted to speak to Redpath. That was a notice of motion.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that there's just for the notice of motion for Redpath. I mean, there's not too many people that I think I am in awe of, and I think Dr. Shaughnessy actually falls in that category. And I know that my mother was absolutely loved Peggy and supported everything she did and followed her religiously. And I know Peggy did so much for me during March of last year when I was going through stuff with my mom. I think that this is really great. And I think it was touched on that the potential for this funding to open up other avenues of funding for Redpath is really important. And I think for someone like Peg, who has Dr. Shaughnessy, excuse me, who has been sort of shown the door time and time again by different organizations and even, you know, the city in the past, she's had trouble trying to get funding from the city. And I think that this is a really great thing that we're doing. And I think that it'll benefit the city in a really great way. So I just wanted to say thank you to her, thank you to Liz, and thank you to Redpath, and thank you for everybody involved, and thank you for everyone who's been here tonight. So thank you, colleagues.
Thanks, Councillor Crowley. Councillor Duguay, please, on Redpath.
Your Worship, thank you for the opportunity to speak. At the General Committee meeting and prior, I had expressed a potential need for a business plan to be produced in support of Dr. Shaughnessy's proposal for some transitional housing at her Brock Street property. I have considered this evening's delegations, plus I reflect upon some of the initial meetings I had with Dr. Shaughnessy. I also reflect upon in 2014, Dr. Shaughnessy, Peggy at the time, she and I were both co-sponsors of Clary Hughes' Big Blue Bike Ride, which dealt with mental health issues and related matters in our city. Peggy has been firmly committed to helping people dealing with addictions and needing to heal self. And what I see, what has been requested this evening is a reasonable request to have the city provide some seed funding to allow Dr. Shaughnessy and her group to advance a proposal that will to better her business model, and as noted, to introduce necessary housing that potentially could serve in a transitional means persons dealing and recovering from addiction. So I'm in full support of our allocation of funds given this background and these circumstances. Thank you.
Councillor Beaver, please.
Thank you, Mayor Leal. Mayor Leal, Councillor Real alluded to it last week, and I don't know if he's speaking or not, but I just wanted to make some comment. Are you on the list? Okay. Is certainly right. I support this. I supported last week, and thank you, Dr. Shaughnessy, for all your great work. It's a great organization. They do great work. it's important to point out there's a lot of great organizations in the community who are doing great work. I've met with Rising Above, and I think they're all also going to be looking for some financial support. Many great organizations doing great work in the community who will be looking for financial support. But we do have to keep in mind, Mayor Leal, as we all know, there's only one taxpayer, and we have to keep that in mind moving forward. This term of council, we've been we've invested significantly in Wolf Street, in Trinity, Brock, both capital and operating, yes, Cameron House, approximately $13 million municipally and provincially on homelessness services. That's increased significantly this term. So a lot of great services and programs and providers out there, a lot of them coming to council looking for some seed funding or for some support for capital and operating. And I don't want to be sort of the downer, Mayor Leal, but there's only so much the property taxpayers can pay. A lot of the property taxpayers are struggling themselves right now. And although we want to be generous and the property taxpayers want to be generous, many of them are tapped out, many of them are tax weary, and many of them are saying, we just can't afford higher property taxes. So something this council and next council will just have to keep in mind, Mayor Leal, there is a limit to the amount that we can spend on homelessness. And although these services and organizations are great, there is a limit where property taxpayers are saying there's only so much that I can afford myself. Thank you, Mayor Leal.
I know it was moved by Councillor Crowley, a seconder for it. Councillor Burke. Councillor Purnell, did you want to speak? Yeah. I just want to say something on a personal basis. My late mother, who was a nursing supervisor at St. Joseph Hospital, actually helped to hire Peggy when she was at O'Reilly in those days. And I said this at the Pathway of Fame introduction, that my mom always thought Peggy was going to have a special mission in life. So I just wanted to reiterate this tonight. Councillor Rial, please.
Through the chair, I will not be supporting this. I want to be very clear at the outset. I fully support the work of Right to Heal does and the people they serve. Addiction and mental health challenges are real, complex, and deserve serious, sustained support. My concern is not about the value of the program, it's about the appropriate role of the City of Peterborough as a funder. Right to Heal is an aftercare treatment recovery program. While traditional housing is an important component of that work, it remains fundamentally a health and social services mandate, not a municipal one. These types of programs are properly funded by senior levels of government, which have both the jurisdiction and the long-term funding capacity to support them. The city already contributes through 2 established affordable housing and homeless funding streams within our social services department. Those programs are designed to access need, ensure fairness, and allotment funding in a transparent and accountable way. Bypassing those processes set a difficult precedent and undermines the integrity of an existing system. In addition, the province has committed $8 million through the Heart Fund specifically for initiative addressing homelessness, addiction, and mental health, precisely the type of work that Right to Heal does. Those funds exist so municipalities are not forced to backfill responsibilities that belong elsewhere. At a time when the city is facing significant financial pressures and rising property taxes, we must be disciplined and consistent. Every dollar we allocate outside of our core mandate is a dollar we cannot spend on housing, infrastructure, transit, or emergency services areas where the city has clear responsibility. So I think I pointed out tonight, and I asked questions of Dr. Shaughnessy if she has applied to these funding, and I guess the answer is no. Well, that's where the buck stops with me. She should have applied there instead of coming to City Council looking for $150,000. taxpayers' money.
Councillor Vasiliadis, please, then Councillor Chika, then Councillor Parnell. Councillor
Thank you.
Vasiliadis, please.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to support this. With this support from the city, it will open up other streams of revenue for Dr. Shaughnessy. I like that she didn't take the traditional route to this. It's when you have the door shut on you quite a few times, you have to look at a different way of getting the funding. And we've seen the results that she's been able to produce. And we always talk about those results and different levels of government and even with the city. And so, I'm happy to support it. And I know that being a good neighbor was brought up. And, we deal with that in all of our awards of being a good neighbor. And she's proven to be that too. So when you have all these things that are working for you, why wouldn't you support something like this? To me, it sure is a different approach. It's not your traditional approach, but it's effective, and she's very effective in what she does. And I think a part of being a good neighbor is holding people accountable, and it's pretty clear that she does that too. So again, very happy to support this, and I wish her well in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Chika, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you, I just would like to say, and I spoke last week, just how much belief I have in Dr. Shaughnessy and everything that happens at Red Path. There's clearly a nucleus there of strength, of support, and it's one of the tools that we need here in our toolkit in Peterborough. And as a downtown ward councillor, this is a force that is so important for our downtown. And this is a special place, second to none. And we've heard tonight from Dr. Shaughnessy that support of the city is necessary for further scaffolded funding from other sources and from the government. So it was great to hear all that explained very clearly. We need this. It's contagious when you do go inside Red Path to see the vision that's at work, and to hear Philip Jolicoeur's testimonial today. Such a powerful thing. So thank you for your presence here today, Red Path, and I fully support this. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did speak to this last week, and of course I will be supporting a Red Path tonight. If you'd seen my hand first, I would have moved it, but I will definitely be voting for it. First, I do want to clarify that we heard very specifically from Dr. Shaughnessy that they were not eligible for the HART funding, and that is a very prescribed amount of funding that is going through forecast. There's no access there. This is funding for transitional housing, specifically the planning for transitional housing. The wraparound services that we keep going on about that we absolutely need as people seek to improve their lives and get away from addiction. They need these wraparound services, and that's exactly what this does. And we have done this very same thing before. The precedent has been set where we do a municipal contribution that shows confidence in the organization and the program, and that does leverage other grant opportunities provincially, federally. Quite often, as we've seen in other programs, significant private money will come in when that confidence is expressed in such an important program and other ones out there. We did the exact same thing for the Brock Mission on Murray Street. I was personally involved in a fundraiser for that, 6 months selling raffle tickets. We also contributed to the new Brock Mission transitional housing, and I'm sure, and then that will be also the relocation of the women's shelter. And then we also supported the incredible affordable housing apartment on Monaghan Road. And all of those things really depended on the council of the day and this council supporting them through the planning application and securing that vision and actually making it happen and into a building permit. So I will be supporting it based on all of those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purnell. Any further speakers? Councillor Baldwin, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I'd like to thank Councillor Crowley for bringing forward the notice of motion. I'd also like to thank Dr. Shaughnessy for reaching out to all of the councillors with their correspondence via email. I did respond to her, and I still haven't made it to the Red Path, but make a commitment this evening that I will be visiting sometime in February if I can pull that together. So absolutely we'll be supporting Councillor Crowley's motion here, and happy to do so. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Anything further? We'll go to a vote. And that's carried. Clerk, the next item of business is bylaws, and I know Councillor Duguay wanted a couple separated out, I believe. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, the next item would be recommendations from this evening's general committee meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
There's two items, Your Worship. The first one, if you would like, I could just paraphrase.
Please do. I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk.
Thanks, Your Worship. So from this evening's general committee meeting, there was a recommendation regarding collective bargaining that council approve the recommendations outlined in report CAO PC 26-001 dated February 2nd, 2026 of the Chief Administrative Officer as follows. That council directs staff to proceed as recommended in closed session report CAO PC 26-001 dated February 2nd, 2026 of the Chief Administrative Officer respecting the collective bargaining process.
We have a mover to that.
Excuse me, I do have a point of order, and maybe I missed something. If I may.
Yes.
10R, did we move that on consent? Because I don't see that we moved
did.
On. Did we move it on consent?
I didn't. Oh, 10R? Senior snow clearing program?
Point of order.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Councillor Burke, if you want to talk about it. Oh, yeah. We'll, the chair always has a degree of discretion. Particularly when the chair likes the program.
And if you don't have that discretion now, you'll definitely have it after this bylaw. Mr. Mayor, this is sort of a self-serving, more self-serving than usual speech. But I just wanted to say I had a long talk today with the resident Ingrid Buck, whom you know, and I just wanted to sort of clarify my support of your motion, Mr. Mayor. I wholeheartedly agree with it. I think that Miss Ingrid Buck saw an article in the Examiner where they pulled out just a quote where I was trying to have the public understand the reality of the cost in terms of investing in the infrastructure to have those machines that sweep each driveway, whatever it's called. And I just wanted to have sort of reality checked because a lot of people ask me as a counselor about, hey, can you just do this? Like I've seen a reel, like assuming that it's just a simple, cheap, effective thing to do. And many of us on council have actually tried to investigate that because I'm sure we all get those emails. And my acknowledgement of the cost of that strategy does not at all mean that I don't support a program like you're suggesting, which looks into subsidies for people. I wholeheartely support that, and definitely have many residents who aren't able-bodied in my ward that this, especially this winter, could use that support. So I support this, and I thank Ms. Buck for reaching out today.
Just for the record, those that may subscribe to the Toronto Star, there was a lengthy story, yesterday's version, of a gentleman who's disabled in Toronto, had a windrow in his driveway of 76 centimeters, and has been isolated for a week because he can't get out. And by the way, very popular program in discussion I had at the Legion last Friday, very popular. Councillor Beaver, please.
Well, just a shout out to Ingrid Buck. She's a North End resident, a strong supporter of Councillor
Burke is moving it. Councillor Crowley second.
Strong supporter of Councillor Hakes and I. It's interesting, all the important and big issues we dealt with tonight. This was the one I got the most calls of this week, and they were all positive from residents and seniors in North Crest Ward. And it's because it affects people. It's potentially allows seniors to stay in their homes longer. And it is an issue that we all get a lot of calls about. So when we talk about important issues tonight, this is one that really resonated with a lot of seniors, Mayor Leo. So kudos on you for bringing this up. I do have to say, Councillor Hickey brought it up in 2014, but council wasn't ready at the time. But I think this needs to be looked at in a really, really good program that a lot of people appreciate, Mayor Leo. So I fully support it.
Thanks very much, Councillor Beamer. I think we've had a good discussion. We'll go to a vote. Councillor Purnell.
I would like to try and add on a little public service announcement to this, if I may, because you had recommended that we read, was it the Toronto Star? Yesterday's Toronto Star. So those of you who don't have subscriptions, this is a plug for our library. If you have a City of Peterborough library card, which is, of course, is free to our taxpayers, that includes Press Reader, which gives you free access to over 10,000 publications, magazines, and newspapers. So I would have to double check with Commissioner Laidman if the Toronto Star is actually one of them, but it probably is. Oh, I'm getting the nod. So there you go. Get your library card and then you can have access.
And I provided Commissioner Semenowski with the story, so he has all that background for a part of his extensive and comprehensive research that he'll be doing on this topic. Any further comments? We'll go to a vote. Who are we missing? Is Councillor Vasiliadis? Councillor Duguay, we're just waiting for your vote.
Your worship, a question procedurally, am I permitted to vote because I did not attend that closed session meeting?
Clerk? Yeah, unless you have a pecuniary interest, Kevin.
I do not. I will vote.
And that's carried. 11B, 314 Carnegie Avenue. Councillor Burke, Secretary Councillor Beamer. We'll go to a vote. And there's a couple that we have to, because of pecuniary interest.
Thanks, Your Worship. Bylaw is 25 or 26-010. through to 26-016 are before council this evening for consideration. And bylaws 26-015 and 016 were the subject of Crescent Street, the rezoning, the official plan, and councillors Burke and Duguay declared interest on those matters.
So if I could get somebody to move. And that's carried. If someone could move 26015 and 26016, the ones that Councillor Duguay, Councillor Burke have declared a pecuniary interest. Councillor Purnell, seconder, Councillor Baldwin. We'll go to a vote. Councillor Duguay, have you voted? Or sorry, you don't vote on this one.
Councillors Parnell and Baldwin. And councillors Duguay and Burke have the conflict.
Oh. Gentlemen, if we could vote there. Councillor Vasiliadis, we're waiting for you to vote.
Yeah, I vote in favor. It didn't pop up, but I'm in favor, definitely.
And that's carried. Next item is other business. Other business. Councillor Purnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Leal, Mr. Chair. A little public service announcement. It is that time of year where we are seeking nominations from the community for the 2025 Civic Awards. So we absolutely encourage people to nominate somebody in your life that you know has been an exemplary in arts, in sports, in music, in community betterment, in environment. Also, please self-nominate. We know we have absolutely amazing people in our community, Mayor, doing all kinds of great projects and programs, and they deserve to be thanked publicly and acknowledged by us at a very special event in May. The deadline to get your nominations into the clerk's office, it's all run through the clerk's office, is March 13th. I believe. So please go to peterborough.ca, check out the Civic Awards, fill out the application, and let us know about the wonderful people in your life, even if it's yourself. We want to know about you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Purnell, any other business? Next item is confirmation bylaw. Someone like to move 26017. Councillor Crowley, Councillor Hickey, we'll go to a vote. Councillor Bastiatis, on the confirmation bylaw.
Yes, thank you.
And that's carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Crowley, Councillor Hickey, we'll go to a vote. Councillor Vasiliadis,
Yes, definitely.
and that's carried. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, staff. Thank you, audience.